Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome to Let's Start Story on What If Naruto Had New Skulk with Devil Fox and Naruto x Hinata Part 2. So do 4 blue hearts comment. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video, and please share with your friends and watch till end. Also check out Patreon for I have upload Harry x Hermione uncensored spicy version, link in description. If those bandits stole the stuff she needs, then let's just take it back. Naruto said. Naruto, they have probably already sold whatever they took. And we are all still injured. Kakashi said. So, you wanted to go after Zabuza. And we were in even worse condition then. Naruto said. So was he. We know nothing about these bandits, where they are, how many. Kakashi said. We have to try. Naruto said. Kakashi grabbed Naruto by his shirt collar and slammed him into the wall. Do you think I am like you? Do you think I enjoy seeing a comrade dying? I would love to go and try to find a way to save her, but I have to take charge of her students and ensure they return to the village unharmed. We will continue to the village tomorrow morning. Regardless of Kurenai's condition, Kakashi dropped Naruto, rougher than needed, and left the room followed by the doctor. Hinata helped Naruto up, shocked at his treatment by his own sensei. You intend to go after the bandits? Shino said. Hell yes. Naruto said. A moment then, Shino said, leaving the room. Naruto put a comforting arm around Hinata. Don't worry, we'll get her whatever she needs. Yes, we will, Hinata said. Shino returned a few minutes later. The bandits are mostly fishermen from the surrounding area that were forced out of their work by Gato. They use an abandoned fort from the last Great War as their base. It is located 5 miles northwest of here inside a small mountain. There are rumored to be around 30 of them. How do you figure all that out? Kiba asked. A nurse, Shino said. All right, looks like our bug boy has a way with the ladies. Kiba said. She said I reminded her of her grandchild. Shino said. Good work Shino, let's go. Naruto said. Wait, Shino said. What? Naruto said. You realize you will be disobeying a direct order by going. Shino said. So, are you saying we should just stay here? Naruto said. No, I just want to make sure you understand. Kakashi will certainly bring you up on charges of disobeying him. Considering how the council feels about you, they will make things extremely difficult for you. They may even be able to force a vote and have you removed as a shinobi. Shino said. Naruto paused. What kind of Hokage would I be if I let a comrade die because I was scared of the council? Very well then. Kiba and I will do what we can to cover your absences. Shino said. Hey, what do you mean? I'm going with them. Kiba said. It would be better for you to remain here with Akamaru and to use a henge to appear as Naruto and Hinata so Kakashi does not notice they have left. It should only take a few hours to recover whatever medicine and equipment the bandits have in return. Naruto and Hinata should be able to handle fishermen without much difficulty. Shino said. Kiba growled. Fine, but if they aren't back by sundown, I'm going after them, no arguments. Agreed, Shino said. Naruto and Hinata left the hospital with a crud map Shino had drawn for them. Getting out of the village was easy enough. Naruto's experience pranking let him find a small alley between some buildings that ran to the edge of the forest. How's your side doing? Naruto said. I'll be fine, Hinata said. She wasn't sure how well she would be in an actual fight, but she couldn't let that hold them back. Sasuke stood panting. The trees around him were cut and burning. One had fallen and leaned heavily against another. He had been there for hours. Since his talk with Naruto on the inn's roof. For some reason Naruto's words refused to leave him alone. With a savage fury he attacked the fallen tree until it was dislodged from its neighbor. He kept up his assault until he collapsed from exhaustion. It took less than an hour for Hinata and Naruto to reach the area where the bandits' base was. They settled on a small ridge facing the mountain the fort had been built into. Hinata activated her Byakugan to study it. I can't see into it, Hinata said with a frown. How come? Naruto said. He had been under the impression Hinata's eyes could see through anything. There's too much rock. The thicker the walls, the harder it is to see through them. Also there appear to be seals around the structure, there is just a void. Hinata said. Deactivating her Byakugan. It doesn't matter what they have, well, take it all. Naruto said. That is a most unyouthful thing to say. For two such as yourself. You should be burning with the flames of youth. I will allow you one chance. Leave now and do not return. Naruto and Hinata spun around. A boy a year or two old, than them with a bowl cut and in a green spandex suit stood glaring at them. Like hell we'll leave, Naruto said. He charged the newcomer, making a dozen shadow clones. The boy put a hand behind his back. Using the other he dealt with the clones as they came at him, sending Naruto rolling back towards Hinata. Pathetic, your actions have dimmed your flames of youth to embers. This guy is getting on my nerves. Hinata, I'll pin him, you take care of the rest. Naruto said. Right, Hinata said, shifting into her clan's fighting stance. The boy paused. I know that stance. It is of the Hyuga clan. And you possess the Byakugan. So, Hinata said, buying time for Naruto to move towards his blind spot. I appear to have made a most unyouthful mistake. I am also a shinobi of Konohagakure. He said, pointing towards a headband around his waist. Wait, you're not a bandit. Naruto said. No, I assumed the both of you were. For my mistake and hasty judgment I will run 500 laps around this mountain on my hands. He said. He backflipped and landed on his palms. Wait, if you're here that means your teammates is as well, right? Hinata said. Why yes, we were dispatched to deal with the bandits. He said. Then we need to speak with your sensei. Right now, Hinata said. Of course, follow me, he said, leading them into the forest, still walking on his hands. I am sorry for my treatment of you. I am Lee. I'm Naruto and this is Hinata. Naruto said. It is a pleasure to meet both of you. If I may, why are you here looking for the bandits? I was unaware that another team had been assigned to this mission. Lee said. Actually we weren't. My team and Hinata's were working in the Wave Country guarding a bridge builder from a missing nin named Zabuza who was working for Gato. Naruto said. Yosh, there are many stories going around about what happened to him. Would you enlighten me as to what truly occurred? Lee said. He blew himself up. Naruto said. He did. I would not think someone like him would do such a thing. Lee said. Well, he had a bunch of explosive tags set to go when he died. Naruto said. Ah, a most unyouthful action. I am jealous, the chance to help rid the world of a criminal such as Gato. But why are you here now? Lee said. Naruto and Hinata explained about Kurenai and needing the medical equipment the bandits stole. I am sure Gai-sensei will help you. Lee said. He led them up a hidden game trail to a small camp that had been set up in a thicket of willow trees. A man that looked like an older version of Lee was waiting near a covered fire. Lee, I see your scouting mission has brought us guests. Yes, Gai-sensei. I am afraid I have committed a most unyouthful mistake. In my haste I assumed these fellow shinobi were bandits and engaged them. For this mistake I have pledged to run 500 laps around this mountain on my hands. Lee said. I am proud of you, Lee, I shall join you. Gai said. He jumped onto his hands. Let us waste no time. Wait please, Hinata said. Gai looked at her with a curious expression. It looked almost painful upside down. Hinata ignored it. We need your help. Kurenai-sensei is hurt and she'll die if we don't get the hospital's equipment back from the bandits. Kurenai. Gai righted himself and became serious. Tell me what has happened. Quickly they explained what had happened. Again. Gai listened intently. Kakashi, my eternal rival. Have your fires truly dimmed so much? A branch broke near the far end of the camp. A boy and girl around Lee's age entered the thicket's cover. Naruto knew the boy had to be related to Hinata. He had the Byakugan too. But they were colorless, like slush. Out of the corner of his eye Naruto saw Hinata hunch her shoulder and look away from the boy. Neji, Nisan. Hinata said. Lady Hinata, I was informed you were on a mission in the land of waves. You seem to be very far from there, as well as in odd company. Neji said. We completed the mission but our sensei was injured. We brought her to the hospital in the nearby village but the bandits stole the equipment they need to save her. Hinata said. I see, where is the remainder of your team? Neji said. They were injured and remained behind with Kurenai-sensei. Hinata said. Hey Hinata, who is this guy? Naruto said. He didn't like the cool tone he was using with Hinata. Or her body language. Naruto, this is Neji. My cousin. Neji. This is Naruto. Hinata said. Naruto. You are the one who runs around the village loudly proclaiming his intention to become Hokage. Neji said. That's right. I'm going to become the greatest Hokage the village has ever seen. Naruto said. His flames of youth burn so brightly. Lee said. I hate to tell you this but you will never become Hokage. Neji said. Why? Naruto said. Hinata pleaded with her eyes. Please don't. Not now, not to Naruto. She wished she could believe Neji won't play this game with Naruto, but he was just the type of person Neji would pick. Has Hinata-sama not told you? The Byakugan can not only see through the physical, but time as well. I think she has seen it as well and wishes to spare you but you will never become Hokage. I can see that clearly. Neji said. I think you need glasses. Naruto said. Neji glared at him. What is wrong with him? There is no doubt in his movements. No one is without doubt. Especially about their future. Is he just too stupid to realize it? I can assure you I am not wrong. And I can assure you that you are. Naruto said, returning Neji's glare. Neji, leave the fortune-telling to the professionals. The girl said lightly, shoving him aside. Sorry he gets too serious sometimes. I'm Tenten. Neji shot her a look but moved to the side and leaned against a tree. Alright. A comrade is in trouble, so we are moving up our mission. Our flames of youth shall burn through these bandits. Because we are now lucky enough to have Hinata and Naruto joining us, we will amend the plan slightly. Lee, Neji, Tenten. You will take the front entrance while I, Hinata and Naruto use the side entrance we discovered. Guy said. Yes Guy-sensei. We shall not let you down. If we fail we shall swim back to Konohagakure. Lee said. Tenten paled. Lee, you do know you can't swim all the way back, don't you? And stop including us in your insane bets. Sorry. Lee said. Okay everyone, weapons out. Tenten said. Lee and Neji emptied their weapons onto the ground. Naruto and Hinata exchanged confused looks. Tenten glanced at them. My dad owns a weapons shop, so I always inspect our weapons before we fight. Naruto and Hinata emptied their own weapon pouches. Tenten quickly went through Neji's and Lee's, grabbing a few that needed a quick sharpening. All of Hinata's passed. When Tenten reached Naruto's, she paused and just looked at them. You're kidding, right? What? Naruto said. These things are horrible. Tenten said, picking up one of the kunai. It had been sharpened so many times it was just a thin sliver of metal now. And to Tenten's trained eye the flaws were obvious. The metal was deforming, it was of a poor quality, and the balance on all of them was off by an unacceptable margin. But the guy who sold them to me said they were the best. Naruto said. As soon as he said it though, he realized he'd been lied to again. He felt like hitting his head on a training dummy. You were scammed. When we get back to the village, stop by my dad's place. He'll set you up with some quality weapons. Tenten said. Alright. Naruto said. Until then. Tenten pulled out a scroll and unsealed a set of kunai and shuriken. I'm a weapons specialist, so I have extra. You can use these. Naruto experimentally picked up one of the kunai. Then tossed it in the air and caught it. A smile spread across his face. Tenten leaned towards Hinata. Men, give them something sharp to play with and they're happy, right? Hinata nodded. Naruto and Hinata crouched next to Guy. He had taken them to a small side entrance to the fort. It was hidden in the shadow of the mountain at the end of a shallow gully. The plan was simple. Lee would draw the bandits to the main entrance. Neji and Tenten would be waiting as backup in case the bandits managed to pull out anything surprising. Guy, Naruto and Hinata would enter through the side entrance and catch them from behind. Hinata would use her Byakugan to keep a lookout for surprises, and Naruto would guard her. Once they reached the main entrance and eliminated the bandits, they would then search for the supplies. Guy had given the signal to Lee 5 minutes before. They waited, giving the bandits time to make their way towards the other's position. Guy motioned them forward. Hinata constantly scanned the area with her Byakugan but hadn't caught sight of any bandits. Alright, stand back, Guy said. He charged the door and kicked it in. The heavy metal crumpled under his attack and sailed down an empty hallway. They could hear it bouncing off stonework for several moments afterwards. Wasn't the whole point of having Lee distract them was so we could catch them off guard? Naruto said. The flames of youth cannot be easily contained. Guy said. He's as bad as Kakashi. Naruto said. The hall and surrounding rooms were empty. Naruto kept expecting a horde of bandits to come rushing to investigate the noise of the door being destroyed. But no one did. Each empty hallway increased the growing unease they felt. Hinata, can you see anyone? Guy said. No, there are seals in the walls that are preventing the Byakugan from seeing past them. I didn't know it was even possible to do this on such a large scale. Hinata said. Well, this fort was built before the great nations were formed. And was used right up to the last war. Hardly surprising it's acquired a few surprises. Be on guard, Guy said. Naruto made a dozen clones and sent them ahead to look for traps. Guy grabbed one as he ran by and held up the Naruto, examining him. Impressive. Not only a solid clone but so many. Hey, let me go, the clone said, struggling from Guy's grasp. Naruto's clone made a rude face at Guy before running down the hall. Naruto scratched the back of his neck. Sorry. Sometimes they have a bit of an attitude. No apologies needed. We are all filled with the flames of youth, Guy said. Naruto started to nod his head, then pulled out a kunai. 2 halls down on the right. Something got one of my clones. How many? Guy said. I don't know, they got me from behind. Naruto said. Alright, guard up. Let's go see what you've found, Guy said. He cautiously moved towards the hall that Naruto's clone had been searching. The other clones joined them. They reached the hall and pressed themselves against the wall around the corner waiting. Guy held up a hand. Naruto and Hinata nodded. Guy spun around the corner roaring, fists flying. Naruto's clones joined him. There was a quick series of pops as they were dispelled. Naruto and Hinata followed a second behind Guy. And came to an abrupt halt. Guy's fist had stopped an inch in front of Lee's face. Lee's foot was right under Guy's chin. Neji stood in a fighting stance. Tenten held 2 maces. As soon as she saw them, Tenten dropped the maces, shoved past a surprised Neji, grabbed Naruto by his jacket and started shaking him. Do you have any idea how much your damn clone scared me? I thought I had killed you. Sorry, Naruto said, trying not to bite his own tongue. Tenten dropped him and walked back towards Neji. Lee and Guy hadn't moved from their positions. Lee, what happened? You were supposed to wait at the main entrance for us. Yes, Guy-sensei. We were. I shouted all manner of youthful challenges but no one responded. We feared something had happened and came to investigate. Luckily the front gate was open. Lee said. No, it wasn't. You ripped it right out of the wall, Tenten said. Guy and Lee relaxed their stances. Guy moved to the nearest room and looked in. There was a cot set up in the corner and a few pieces of clothing on the floor. There were no signs that the bandits left, but they clearly aren't here. Very well, we will proceed with caution. If my memo of this base is correct, the storage area is only a little further on. Slowly their group moved deeper into the fort, the only light now coming from flickering torches. They were burned down to the stumps. The group entered a room with long tables. Half-eaten meals were scattered across the wood and floor. Here they found the first bodies. 3 along the far wall, deep cuts across all, their blood sprayed onto the wall. The smell of the food still covered the smell of blood. Before they could investigate, Zabuza walked out of a door near the bodies. His sword, now repaired, rested casually on his shoulder. His arms were covered in bandages, and stained with blood. He was dragging a large bag behind him. Deep red stains were seeping through the fabric. He looked as surprised to see them as they were to find him. His eye fell to Naruto and Hinata. What the hell, you brought stalking me now? Guy glanced at Naruto and Hinata. Do you know this most unyouthful person? Yeah, this is Zabuza. He was the guy trying to kill our client in Wave. Naruto said. I see, and what are you doing here? Guy said. What the hell does it look like? Those brats got my meal ticket to blow himself up. So now I have to go after pitiful bounties to get some cash. He pointed at Naruto and Hinata with his sword. Now what are you two doing here? Kurenai-sensei needs the medical equipment these bandits stole, so we came to steal it back. Guy-sensei was already here to take care of them, so we joined up. Naruto said. Well, you won't have to bother with them. Zabuza said. This is true, however. Because you were the one who killed them, our mission will be marked as a failure. Neji said, shifting into a fighting stance. However, capturing a missing nin such as yourself would more than make up for that. Like hell you could take me, kid. You're a Hyuga, right? That second branch of losers. Zabuza said. Before anyone could stop him, Neji charged forward and attacked. Zabuza lazily brought his sword in front of himself to block the attack. Still, there was enough force to send him back and dent the metal. Neji smirked. Still believe I am a loser? Zabuza looked at his sword. Meh. And the girl attacked, she cut right through the blade. Denting it isn't as impressive. Before Neji could try again, a chain looped around his hand and he was yanked back over a table by Tenten. Guy regarded Zabuza. You came for the bounty. You have what you need. So you won't stop us from taking the medical equipment. Zabuza stabbed his sword into one of the bodies. The puddle on blood under it shrank. The dent righted itself with a slight pop. Knock yourselves out, already took the cash and jewels for myself. Guy-sensei. Or simply going to let him leave. Look what he has done to the bandits. Lee said. Don't make them sound so innocent, kid. They've murdered plenty of people. Zabuza said, walking towards a side door. They were forced to it by Gato. Lee said. You might want to do a bit more research. They weren't forced to become bandits by Gato, but they were on his payroll. Zabuza said as he left. Lee looked back at the bodies. Do you think he was telling the truth about them working for Gato? Possibly. I had heard rumors that he was using such methods. Right now we need to find the medical equipment. Guy-sensei said. I am familiar with Zabuza's style. It is lickle. Why the bodies further in will be worse than these? Anyone who wishes to remain here may do so. Neji turned to Hinata and smirked. I am sure you would find the bodies too much for your constitution. You should wait here. Don't worry, I'll wait with you. Tenten said. I will be fine. I've seen worse. Hinata said, pushing past Neji. The rest of them watched her walk right past the bodies, then turned and gave Naruto a questioning look. He wasn't sure how much he should say, but they were clearly waiting for him to explain and Hinata was getting further away. While we were fighting Zabuza, Gato showed up with a bunch of thugs. Hinata ended up killing a lot of them. Neji snorted in a most un-Hyuga-like manner. My cousin Hinata. You are mistaken. She has neither the will nor skill to take another human's life, even a mere thug's. Quote. Clearly you don't know Hinata. Naruto said, jogging to catch up with her. He found her down another hall. The room before them was covered in blood, it ran along the floor, down the wall and dripped from the ceiling. Hinata was crouching at the entrance. Naruto crouched down next to her, resting a hand on her back. Hinata. I will be alright. Thank you. It's easier to ignore them. Hinata said. Right. Focus on getting the stuff for Kurenai-sensei. Naruto said. They stood and made their way across the room. Thankfully most of the torches had been extinguished during Zabuza's attack. They could see little more than shapeless lumps. The smell though, nothing could help that. The stink of blood and cut bodies. They focused on taking slow shallow breaths through their mouths. Still it clung to the back of their throats, trying to strangle them from the inside, turning their stomachs sour. On the other side of the room was a thick door. It had been cut into by Zabuza, but there were no bodies inside, just boxes and boxes. Naruto grabbed an unlit torch and went back to the last room to light it. Then lit the rest of the torches in the storeroom. They began looking at the boxes for anything that sounded medical. A minute later Lee and Neji arrived. Naruto was glad to see the Hyuga looked paler than before. Lee was visibly shaking. Between the four of them they had a sizable pile of potential medical equipment when Guy arrived. Having spent several minutes moving bodies out of the way and checking the area, together they carried the boxes out of the fort. Guy sent Tenten back to their camp to collect their things while the rest of them took the boxes to the hospital. As soon as they reached the hospital, Hinata set her boxes down and rushed to Kurenai's room. Neither Shino nor Kiba were there, but the machine continued to hum, showing that she was alive. As soon as the doctors saw the boxes they began opening them, grabbing what they would need. Naruto was sent out to find another doctor who had already left. Naruto caught him just as he was entering a bar. And after the threat to use a ninjutsu that would turn all the ALC Ohole in the village into water, he and the doctor quickly made their way back to the hospital. Naruto was glad the doctor didn't know there wasn't such a technique. Kurenai was in surgery by the time Tenten arrived with her team's belongings. They were all crammed into the hospital's small waiting room. Night had settled as the operation continued. One of the nurses entered and looked at them. Excuse me, would one of you be Naruto? I am. Naruto said. I have an envelope from your friend with the sunglasses, such a nice young man. She said, handing Naruto a note. He quickly read it. Naruto. I am sorry, we were discovered. Sakura found Kiba while he was disguised as you. The doctor says he is lucky none of his ribs were broken. Kakashi has ordered that we return to the village immediately. I'm sure you and Hinata will return with the equipment Kurenai needs. Shino. Guy-sensei read the note over his shoulder. I see, so Kakashi didn't know either of you went after the bandits. Naruto and Hinata were forced to admit that he had not. But we had to. I see, well considering the circumstances I think you will both get off fairly light. I shall do what I can when we return to the village. I shall stand in defense of your flames of youth. Guy said. The nurse hushed him with a light swat to his arm. After the first hour or so Neji stood. Waiting here will not change the outcome. I will secure rooms at the inn we saw. Naruto saw Hinata relax after Neji left. So Naruto, tell us about the fight you had with Zabuza. It truly must have been a magnificent fight. Lee said. He was disappointed when he heard that they had only fought Haku, but he was quickly enthralled in the story. Naruto told them about Hinata cutting through Zabuza's sword, and saving his ass. She blushed and tried to brush it off, but Tenten slapped her back. That was one of the 7 legendary swords of the mist. Living after fighting one is impressive enough, but to damage it. And with your bare hands. Maid, Neji isn't the brightest in your family after all. Hinata ducked her head and stayed quiet, but Naruto caught sight of a small smile. Naruto continued the story until he was knocked out. He looked at Hinata to take over. Though he wasn't sure if she would want to. Hesitantly she began, saying she thought Naruto had died. Smashing Haku's mirror. And losing it when she saw Gato. She hesitated or describing cutting through his thugs. Even Lee lost his look of excitement at her description. She was crying by the time she got to the part about seeing Naruto and the thug stabbing her. That is amazing. I did not know a Hyuga was able to cry. Lee said. Tenten smacked his head. Of course they can. Sorry, continue. Naruto picked it up, leaving out any mention about the Kyuubi's chakra. Ted saying that he had charged the thugs who had run, cautious from Hinata's earlier attack. Playing down Gato's explosion. How he had stopped Sasuke and they had carried Hinata and Kurenai to the doctor's house. Your flames of youth burn so brightly. Lee said. Indeed. To start on a simple C-rank mission and encounter all of that. I believe, from everything you have said, that the mission will end up being reclassified as a rank. Guy said. Really? Sweet Hinata, we completed an A-ranked mission. Naruto said. Tenten slammed her hand across his mouth. This is a hospital, be quieter. You're as bad as Lee. Sorry. Naruto said. The night moved on slowly. One by one they began to nod off. Even those that proclaimed their youthful flames, were sleeping by midnight. All except Hinata. Naruto was resting his head on her shoulder. And she had her head on his. So Hinata, are you and Naruto a couple? Hinata jerked at Tenten's voice. She had thought the older girl was asleep. She quickly looked to make sure Naruto hadn't been woken by her sudden movement. The quietly nodded. Yes, but please, don't tell anyone, especially not Neji. Tenten gave her a longing look. I won't. I envy you too. Hinata puzzled over Tenten's words for a few minutes until Naruto shifted and his arm ended up around her waist. Then she decided to simply enjoy the warm feeling spreading throughout her. Octar was gently nudging Hinata's shoulder. She opened an eyes, wishing she had been left to sleep in Naruto's embrace a little longer. But Guy-sensei was already awake and Lee was doing a strange assortment of stretches. Miss. Yes. Hinata said, dread settled in her stomach. We are finished. Your friend is stable. There should be no problems with her making it until the medic ninja arrives. The doctor said. Hinata stood and gave a deep bow. I thank you for all of your hard work in helping Kurenai-sensei. The doctor was slightly taken aback by her formal manner but returned the bow. Think nothing of it, it is our job. Guy slapped the doctor on the back. The doctor stumbled forward, almost falling over. Nonsense. If not for your mostly youthful attention, who knows what would have happened to our comrade. Yes. Have you had a hearing test recently? The doctor said. No, I do not believe so. Guy said, not understanding why the doctor had asked. Maybe you should get one before you leave. Your friend is back in her room if you want to visit her, but, please. Be quiet. He directed this last plea towards Guy. Guy nodded his understanding. At least the doctor hoped that what he meant. Naruto waited outside of Kurenai's room. Hinata had asked for some time alone with her sensei even though she was still unconscious. Guy, Lee and Tenten had gone to the inn to find Nei. And tell him the operation had been a successful. Before leaving, Guy had told Naruto they would remain until the medic nin arrived to keep an eye on things. It had been a huge weight off of Naruto's shoulders. One he hadn't noticed until it was gone. As he waited, Naruto began to wonder why he couldn't have been put on a team under Kurenai or Guy. They seemed nice, they explained things. Their teams were nice. Defiantly better than his own. Well, maybe not Neji, there was something about him that rubbed Naruto the wrong way. And the way Hinata acted around him. Thank you, Naruto. Hinata said, opening the door. No problem. Naruto said. What were you thinking about? You looked angry. Hinata said. Just your cousin. Naruto said. I am sorry for the way he acted. It is a game some of my clan enjoys playing with people. Hinata said. She knew it was considered a clan secret, but she wanted to explain it to Naruto. The Byakugan cannot really see the future. But some, like Neji, are skilled enough to pick out small muscle movements that can reveal how a person feels or what they are thinking. Seriously. He can figure all that out for a few twitches. Naruto said. Yes, Neji is very good at it. He has convinced many people that he can see their future. Hinata said. You know, it wasn't that bothers me. I'm used to people not believing I'll be Hokage. It's the way he treats you. I guess I kind of figured that was just the old guys causing you trouble. Naruto said. No, I mean Neji can be cold, but he is not like my father or the elders. He has had a hard life within the clan. Hinata said. So that doesn't mean he can be a jerk. Naruto said. Neji really isn't that bad. They both jumped, neither had heard Tenten walk up behind them. I've even seen him smile a few times on missions. I am sorry. It's because of me that he's had such a hard life. Hinata said. What do you mean? Naruto said. When I was little, someone tried to kidnap me. My father killed them before he took me out of the compound. It was a diplomat from Kumogakure. They threatened to restart the war with us if my father's body was not given to them. Neji's father, my uncle and my father's younger brother, was killed and sent in my father's place. Because of me he grew up alone. Hinata said. She was close to tears. Naruto put an arm around her. It's not your fault. You can be held responsible for what your father did. So that's what it was. I always knew there was something else causing Neji's hate of your clan. Tenten said. Yes, he hates the Hyuga. And he is also the most promising member of the cadet branch, or the main. He should be the next clan head instead of me. My father would have been much happier if Neji had been his son, but instead he got me, not even fit for the cadet branch. Hinata said. Hey now. That's not true. Tenten said. Excuse me. They turned and found a girl in her early 20s, hands on her knees catching her breath. I'm Fusho, the medic nin from the Leaf. I'm here to heal Kurenai Yuhi. Why yes. She's in here. Hinata said, opening the door to Kurenai's room. Fusho rolled up her shelves. Right, let's get to work then. E1, grab a doctor so I can find out what I'm dealing with. Naruto ran down the hall until he found a doctor, then practically dragged him back to Kurenai's room. Fusho started asking the confused Doctor medical questions while running chakra-covered hands of Kurenai. Finally Fusho rested her hands on Kurenai's stomach. They flared bright green for several minutes. When she pulled her hands off of Kurenai's stomach, Fusho gave them a smile. She'll be fine. The doctors here did amazing work. I've accelerated her healing and taken care of a minor infection. She should be well enough to travel in a day or two. Hinata bowed. Naruto tried to imitate her but found it hard to keep his balance. Thank you very much. No problem. From what I hear, you two are the ones that did the hard part. Getting the equipment back, Fusho said. Nah, another team was already here to deal with the bandits. We just tagged along, Naruto said. The door burst open and Guy slid into the room. Tenten says the medic nin has arrived. Naruto pointed behind Guy towards Fusho. Guy spun around. How is Kurenai? She will be fine, Fusho said. Thank you. I had feared her youthful flames would flicker their last here. Guy said. Not a problem. Have you suffered hearing damage recently? Fusho said. No, though it is curious you should ask. Guy said. Hinata motioned for them to leave. Naruto followed her into the hall. Thank you, Naruto. For what? Naruto said. Helping Kurenai-sensei. I don't want to think about what would happen without her. It would be almost as bad as losing you. Hinata said. Well, I couldn't let a comrade die if I could help it. Besides, I don't want to see you sad. I'm going to go grab some steamed buns in case Kurenai-sensei wants some real food when she wakes up. Oh yeah, one more thing. Naruto said. He leaned in and kissed Hinata's cheek. Tag, you're it. Hinata watched him dash down the hall, already planning when and how she would tag him back. By the time Naruto returned, Guy and Fusho had left. Kurenai was propped up on her bed, looking tired but awake. Hello Naruto. Hinata has been filling me in on your little adventure. Glad to see you up, hungry. Naruto said, holding up a bag of steamed buns. He had tried and failed to find other food stands in the village. Kurenai and Hinata nodded. When they were finished, Kurenai turned to Hinata. Would you please find Guy? I want to speak with him about our return trip. Of course Kurenai-sensei. Hinata said. Naruto stood to follow, but Kurenai grabbed his arm. A minute if you would, Naruto. Sure. Naruto said. He felt like when Iruka had asked him to stay after class. It was never good. I want to thank you. I understand I owe you and Hinata my life. Kurenai said. Nah, couldn't let a comrade die. Besides, it would have made Hinata sad. Though if you want to repay me, you could show me some super cool jutsu. Naruto said. I will consider it. I also wish to thank you for helping Hinata with her first kill. Normally I would have done so, but in my absence you handled it very well. But I have to wonder, have you neglected your own feelings in the matter? Kurenai said. I don't follow. Naruto said. You also took lives. I have my doubts about Kakashi speaking with you on the matter. How are you feeling? Kurenai said, sitting up further so she could look him in the eye. I feel okay, I guess. I don't like it. I don't want to have to do it again. But I will if I can't find another way. Naruto said. I'm impressed. Most people take their first kill much harder. I hid in my room for a week after mine. Kurenai said. Really? Guess I've just had more experience. All the attempts on my life. Naruto said. Kurenai didn't miss the bitter tone that had crept into his voice. I am amazed at that. I don't know how much you have been through, but that you can still smile and laugh is a testament to your character. Your youthful flame, as Guy would put it. Kurenai said with a small smile. Is it weird? That I understand why, but I can't forgive them. I know that they're scared, and that's why I have to hurry and become Hokage so they won't have to worry anymore. But I can't forgive some of them. Naruto said. No Naruto, it is perfectly understandable. You have been through more than most of the villagers. When we return to the village, I will do what I can to help you. My door will always be open to you as well. Kurenai said. Thanks. Naruto said, scratching the back of his neck and blushing. He quietly excused himself when Guy burst through the door. That night Kurenai was, reluctantly, released from the hospital and into Fushu's care. Extra rooms had been rented at the inn, and to celebrate, Guy had secured a small feast. They all sat around Kurenai and Fushu's room eating. Lee was a party animal and within half an hour was on the table trying to sing. Tenten hid her head muttering, if he's this bad now, what'll he be like when he's old enough to drink? The next 2 days were peaceful. Fusho was happy with Kurenai's progress and announced she was fit for light travel. Wonderful. With your flames of youth burning brightly, we shall leave tomorrow. Guy said. You didn't have to wait for me. Kurenai said. We could not simply leave you here alone. Guy said. I have Fusho and I can take care of myself. Kurenai said. Naruto, Hinata, Tenten, Lee and Neji watched the Jonins with differing levels of amusement. Whatever Guy was going to say was interrupted by a shout outside. The door to Kurenai's room was thrown open and the innkeeper ducked in, a hawk flying around his head. Does this monster belong to you? He said. The hawk settled on the table in front of Guy. A message tube attached to its back. Guy ignored the innkeeper and pulled a paper out of the message tube. Reading over it and frowning. The others waited. It was Lee who gave into curiosity first. Guy-sensei. What is it? When Guy did not answer, Neji reached out and took the paper, then smirked. We have been reassigned to an A-ranked mission. We are to locate and capture Naruto Uzumaki. Then return him to the village under the charges of kidnapping Hinata Hyuga. I suppose that since we are to capture Naruto, we should tie him up. Neji said. Like you could. Naruto said. Quiet both of you. Kurenai said. Yes, this is a serious matter. Guy said. Hardly. Neji said, tossing the paper aside. Even Hinata is adequate enough in the basics of our clan's style to defend herself from someone as unskilled as Naruto. Neji, that is enough. Guy said. I am sorry Kuren. I bet we must travel as quickly as we can back to the village and clear this up. I understand, we would only slow you down. We'll follow as quickly as we can. Kurenai said. Alright. Pack up everyone, we're heading back. We'll travel through the night and use it as training. Guy said. Tenten groaned while Lee jumped cheering. It has been months since we have done night training. Naruto left with the rest of them to pack his things. Hinata picked up the mission order and stared at it. Shino and Kiba must have told them what we were doing, this has to be from my father. I can't believe this. All those years not caring. And now he decides to. No, if he cared he would have listened to Shino and Kiba. What will happen to Naruto? What if he blames me for this? No, I have to fix this. I will. She walked over to Kurenai's bed. I request permission to travel with Naruto and Guy-sensei to explain to the Hokage. Of course. I expected you to. Don't look so down. Naruto will be fine. The Hokage will make sure of that. And as long as you tell them Naruto didn't kidnap you, everything will work out. Kurenai said. What if he blames me for this? Hinata asked. Hinata, I know Naruto can be dense sometimes, but he's smart enough to know you wouldn't have anything to do with this. You cannot be held accountable for others' actions. Kurenai said. Thank you, Kurenai-sensei. Hinata said. Kurenai's words echoed ones Naruto had said to her just days before. The sun was behind the mountain before they were ready to go. Lee was jogging in place waiting for Guy to give them the go-ahead. The Jonin raised his arm. Lee began to fidget. Guy dropped his arm and Lee jumped into the trees with a loud whoop. Tenten and Neji followed a second behind. Naruto made it 20 feet down the road before he realized that they had disappeared into the trees. He gave Hinata a questioning look. Where did they go? They're traveling by tree. Hinata said. They can do that. Naruto said. Of course. They trained us for it at the academy. Hinata said. As soon as she said it she regretted it, just one more thing he hadn't been taught. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. I kind of remember those days. The instructors made me carry the logs so I was always too tired to run the course. Naruto said. Absently kicking a stone. Guy appeared on the road between them. What's wrong? Have your youthful fires dimmed already? Sorry Guy-sensei, I never actually learned that tree jumping thing. Naruto said. Kurenai mentioned your previous instructors had slacked in your training, but this is worse than I had thought. Have you learned water walking? Guy said. You can walk on water. Teach me. Naruto said. Missing the point. Tree walking. Guy said. Yeah, Hinata helped me get it. Naruto said. I am confused. I am sure I have seen you jumping across the village roofs after some of your more youthful exploits. Guy said. Well yeah, the roofs are a lot bigger than branches and they're pretty close together. Naruto said. I see, you already have the skills but lack practical application of them. Guy said. He squatted on the ground. The principle is similar to tree walking, except to add chakra to your legs and feet to increase the distance you can jump. It is also important to learn how fast to go. Depending on your skill you will either be able to keep a steady stream of Akra going or have to change in midair so that you can stick to the branch when you land. Naruto looked a little overwhelmed but nodded. Guy frowned. We will hold off leaving for a few hours so you can get the hang of it. Hinata. Yes Guy-sensei. Hinata said. You helped Naruto with his tree walking exercise, correct? Guy said. Yes Guy-sensei. Hinata said. Then please assist him again. Shish. I'll take my team on a brisk night jog around the mountain while you work. Guy said. He jumped back into the trees. Naruto smiled at Hinata. Alright, where do we start Hinata-sensei? Hinata blushed. Please don't call me that. I'm not sure where to begin. You already know the basics of how to do it, I've seen you when we spar and when you fought. You just need to learn to do it consciously and with the proper power. Okay, so how do I do that? Naruto said. Hinata considered it for a moment. Then used her foot to kick out a line in the road. Run here, when you reach the line jump as far as you can, but don't try to use chakra. Naruto nodded, then ran at the line. When he reached it he jumped, and landed just over 3 feet from it. Hinata nodded. Now go back and do it again, this time. When you reach the line, put as much chakra as you can into your legs and feet." He smiled at the idea of going all out. Naruto ran towards the line and forced all his chakra into his legs and feet. The result was amazing. He was hurled into the air, above the tree line. He yelled out in a combination of joy and amazement. At the top of his jump he was floating, an ocean wind whipped at his clothes, rustling his hair. Then he began to fall. The few weightless moments gone, the ground surged towards him. He curled into a ball and tried to roll as he hit. As soon as Hinata saw Naruto leap, she knew he was going too far into high. She activated her Byakugan and chased after him. He was over the forest, she couldn't reach him before he crashed through the trees. "Naruto." Hinata found him untangling himself from a pile of fallen branches. "Naruto. I'm sorry, I didn't think you would go so far. It's all right, it was actually pretty awesome till the whole falling part." Naruto said. They went back to the road and Hinata had him try again, this time going for distance not height. Naruto had learned his lesson and limited the amount of chakra he applied. Still, there were several mishaps before he began to get the hang of it. His first few attempts had him going several yards. Unfortunately, he was still moving very fast when he hit the ground and went rolling. After an hour of this, he was dirty and his clothes were torn, but he was able to stick the landing and go several yards in a single jump. Hinata smiled at his progress. They went back to the fishing village. It was getting late. But most of the homes still had lights on, so at least they wouldn't wake a lot of people. Hinata jumped onto a roof and waited for Naruto. He looked up at her, then applied chakra to his feet, shooting up and passing the roof by several feet. He landed, legs spread, grinning. "Try to only use the peak of the roofs," Hinata said. She led him across the village's roofs in a random pattern, taking an abrupt turn to test him. He was surprisingly good after he learned to gauge the amount of chakra he needed. By the time they returned to the forest, he was grinning as much as when he had filled the hot springs with bubble bath. "All right, I think you are ready to try the trees, just be careful. It's easy to hit another branch you didn't notice," Hinata said. By the time Guy returned, with a winded Tenten and a slightly ruffled-looking Neji, Naruto was jumping all over the forest, even tried backflips and handstands. Guy watched him nodding. "You have done a fine job, Hinata. His youthful fires have been fanned into an inferno. I didn't do much, he already knew everything he needed to. I only helped him put it together," Hinata said, head down now that Neji was watching her. At Guy's urging, they took to the trees. Naruto dashing towards the front of the group to talk with Lee. Hinata found herself moving near Neji. "It is amazing how much trouble you are able to cause. When we return to the village, Naruto will be arrested. It would not surprise me if he chose not to train with you. Why he has done so for so long is beyond even my understanding." Hinata looked away from her cousin, and missed a worn patch on the next branch. Her foot slipped and she fell towards the forest floor. When Naruto looked over his shoulder and saw Hinata talking to Neji, he started to fall back to make sure her cousin didn't try anything. When he saw her slip, he channeled enough chakra into his feet to shatter to branch and shot him backwards. He managed to catch her just feet from the ground. Hinata looked at Naruto, surprised she hadn't crashed into the ground. The last time she checked, Naruto was still up with Lee. He set her down smiling. Neji had also stopped and hung upside down watching them. "You can not even do something as simple as tree jumping. How disappointed your father must be. Shut the hell up. If your eyes were a tenth as good as you thought they were, you and that whole clan would be able to see how great of a shinobi Hinata is," Naruto said. Neji just smirked. "You betray, you ignorance. While she may be acceptable by the terms of a failure like you, by a true clan's standards she is mediocre at best." "Take that back," Naruto said. "It is an inescapable fact, nothing more. Becoming angry over it only betrays your lack of knowledge." Neji said. "It's not a fact," Naruto said. "It is. Just as that you shall never be Hokage. People are born bound by their chains of destiny. You cannot escape or change them." Neji said. "Oh yeah, come down here and I'll beat the crap out of you. We'll see how your chains of destiny like that," Naruto said. Neji dropped to the ground and slid into the Hyuga fighting stance. "You are as pathetic as Hinata." Hinata saw red. She knew she was a failure to her family, but for Neji to imply Naruto was as weak as she was, it was too much. As Neji charged forward for his first strike and Naruto moved to block, Hinata dashed between them. Neji's eyes widened as she hit his arm, sending his strike wide, then attacking his chakra network around his left shoulder. The hits were not as exact as her clan demanded, but they did their job. Nay, I barely managed to retreat, clutching his arm. His shock at being hit, by Hinata of all people, had caused him to hesitate, and he was paying for it now. Guy dropped between them. What is going on? That bastard started it, Naruto said. He was insulting Hinata. Neji. Guy said. I was only stating the facts, he is simply unable to deal with them. Neji said. I am ashamed of all of you. Guy said. He noted with satisfaction that both Hinata and Naruto looked embarrassed. Neji though showed no remorse at his action. Tenten, from now on you are to travel with Neji. If he acts unythful, why? Oh, you may use any method you see fit to deal with him. Oh, I will. Tenten said. It was only thanks to Hinata's still activated Byakugan that she saw the twitch along Neji's jaw. They continued through the forest. Neji and Tenten taking the lead. Guy and Lee behind them. Hinata and Naruto bringing up the rear. Hinata couldn't believe she had actually attacked Neji. She also couldn't believe that she had managed to hit him. Whatever small pride she might have felt at her own accomplishment was overshadowed by her humiliation at having gotten Naruto in trouble with Guy. Naruto. I'm sorry for my actions. Hinata said. Why? That was amazing. You totally got him. Naruto said. But, Guy-sensei was angry with us and it's my fault. Hinata said. No, I started it, and sorry about that, but you were awesome. Naruto said. Thank you. When we stop we should apologize to Guy-sensei. He has been very kind to us. Hinata said. Yeah, I guess we should. Naruto said. Even with a nearly full moon the forest became dark. The branches cloaked in shifting shadows. Naruto ran into several large branches he missed seeing entirely. And was saved from many more by Hinata's Byakugan. They came to a stop just an hour before sunrise. Tenten looked winded, Hinata was panting lightly. Neji seemed fine, which annoyed Naruto. His own legs were sore but the thrill had kept him going. Lee seemed fine doing a set of stretches. Guy had just completed a similar set. We will rest for 3 hours. Sleep if you want to. Myself and Lee will stand guard. Neji sat down under a tree, Tenten flopped onto the grass. Hinata and Naruto walked over to Guy. Hinata took the lead. Guy-sensei, we would like to apologize for our actions earlier. It is all right. Occasionally the flames of youth will burn everyone. If you truly wish to make amends, then perhaps you would consider sparing with Lee. Guy said. Both of us. Hinata said. She could see why he would want Lee to spar with Naruto, but her. Yes. Naruto's flames rival his in a way I have never seen. And you managed to strike Neji. A feat even Lee cannot yet boast to. Guy said. I am not sure Lee would not be able to learn anything from me, but if you want I will gladly spar with him. Hinata said. Yeah, that sounds fun. Naruto said. Wonderful. For now Naruto can spar with Lee, during our next break. Hinata. Is this agreeable? Guy said. Yes, Guy-sensei. They said. Wonderful. Lee. Naruto has agreed to a sparring match with you. Guy said. Yosh. I have been dreaming of this. Lee said, running over. They took their stances and waited. Guy dropped his hand. Lee surged forward. A kick aimed at Naruto's head. Naruto barely blocked, the force knocked him off his feet. He rolled and recovered. Then waited until Lee was right on top of him and sprung up inside Lee's guard. Lee twisted to avoid a punch and sent his elbow into the back of Naruto's head. Naruto stumbled forward. Lee danced away and took a defensive stance. Naruto growled and decided to show off a bit. Lee's vision turned orange as several dozen of Naruto's clones appeared around him and attacked. For a split second he was too surprised to react, then they were on him. Lee swung his fist and feet, popping the clones that came into his range. After the first wave, the rest of the clones stopped flinging themselves at him and started a slower, more planned attack. 2 or 3 at once from different angles. Lee smiled. Naruto might not have been a difficult opponent, but he was interesting. Then Guy charged Lee. He flattered at seeing his sensei join the fight. Until he noticed Guy's style was off. Lee grabbed his arm and dispelled the clone. All of his training had not only taught him his sensei's style but also to sense what he cannot see. Lee bent forward as Naruto attacked from behind him. Naruto rolled over Lee's back and jumped to his feet. The few remaining clones closed in to try and overwhelm Lee, but he slapped them aside and pressed his attack on Naruto. A kick to his legs. A deflected punch and an elbow to the ribs had Naruto on the ground panting. That's enough. Excellent work both of you. Gain said. Thank you sensei, Naruto is a most interesting opponent. Lee said. Yes, Naruto. From what I heard from Kurenai you had difficulties learning taijutsu at the academy. You seem to be doing well in it now. Guy said. Hinata helped me. Naruto said. I thought I saw hints of her clan's style in your movements. You've adapted them well. When we return to the village you are welcome to join Lee and myself in morning taijutsu practice. I think you would do well from a more aggressive style. Guy said. Thank you. Naruto said. Thanks to Guy's tight pace and a few questionable shortcuts they reached the village gates in the late afternoon of the third day. The guards smiled when they saw them. That was quick. Well, take the brat from here. One moved to tie Naruto with chakra wire, but Guy suddenly appeared between him and Naruto. We are taking Naruto directly to the Hokage's office. But prisoners. One started to say. Naruto is not a prisoner. Guy said. The guards watched confused as Guy, his students, Hinata and Naruto walked into the village. None of them missed the looks the villagers were throwing at Naruto. What took longer for them to realize where the same villagers were also smiling widely at the rest of them. An elderly woman at a small fruit shop offered them apples for their great service to the village. A fat, balding man offered them, excluding Naruto, half off any clothes in his shop for their amazing work apprehending such a dangerous criminal. Only Naruto's hand on her shoulder kept Hinata from sticking out at their shops. She didn't miss how tense his own muscles were. Others simply called out to them. Put that thing in chains. We would have settled for the head. The last two comments came from a pair of brothers who owned a rundown bar. As they walked past the bar, Guy tripped over his own feet and crashed into a corner support beam. It broke and a loud crash inside told them something else had followed. The brothers watched as dust rolled out the open door and broken window. Guy tried not to smile. Oh dear, I seem to have become clumsy. Of course I will pay for repairs. Just submit a form to the Hokage about the incident, including the conversation before. Neji frowned as they walked away. That was most unbecoming of a shinobi. I have no idea what you mean, Neji. I simply tripped. Guy said. He refused to talk about it again. The guards at the Hokage tower let them pass without incident. The Hokage himself saw them right away. I am glad you were able to return so quickly. Thank you, sir. Guy said. We wish to protest our last mission in regards to Naruto. It's true. He didn't kidnap me. Hinata blurted out. She clamped her hands over her mouth. She'd yelled at the Hokage, again. Neji had a nasty smile. The Hokage's was much kinder. The door to his office opened and Hinata's father entered. Hiyashi looked over them with cold eyes. Neji, you should have reported to the main house as soon as you returned. I am sorry, sir. Neji said. Hiyashi, Hinata was just informing us that Naruto did not, in fact, kidnap her. The Hokage said. Is this true? Hiyashi said. Hinata tried not to shrink under his gaze. Yes, Naruto and I both left to look for the medical equipment Kurenai-sensei needed. Quote, I see. In a few minutes there is a special council meeting to discuss this issue. I will officially drop the charges against this boy there. Is this acceptable? Hiyashi said. The Hokage nodded. It would be. Neji, Hinata, return to main house and report to the elders. Hiyashi said, leaving without acknowledging anyone else. Naruto looked at the Hokage. So I'm off the hook. Yes, Naruto. I would like you to come by tomorrow morning though so we can discuss a few things. The Hokage said. Sure thing, Naruto. Naruto. If you wish to join us for jutsu training we have morning exercises at 6 or pre-mission training at 9. You are welcome at either, or both. Guy said. Thanks, all, keep that in mind. Naruto said. Slowly the group broke up. The Hokage hurried to the council's meeting room. He was the last to arrive. Only the civilian set of the council and a few shinobi were present. The other clans preferring to stay out of it. One of the merchants, who had volunteered to act as head of this meet, stood up and cleared his throat several times. This meeting is to decide the action to be taken against one Uzumaki Naruto on the charges of kidnapping Hyuga Hinata. Hiyashi stood. The group assigned to retrieve the accused has returned with my daughter. She has informed us that she willing went with him. Therefore there is no evidence against him and I must, regretfully, withdraw my case. Are you sure, Hiyashi? Another merchant asked. I am. It would be a waste of this council's time, Hiyashi said. One of the Hyuga elders in Th. room attempted to gain Hiyashi's attention but he ignored them. Very well then, onto the disciplinary action requested by Kakashi, the merchant said. Kakashi stood up, not looking at the Hokage. During the mission, Naruto willfully and knowingly interfered with the capture of the missing nin Zabuza. He did this by attacking Sasuke. Under the shinobi articles I request the council to take disciplinary action beyond those that I will take. That is enough, Kakashi. I have reviewed the reports and Naruto only acted with the interests of his comrades, two of whom were in critical condition. The Hokage said. He may have had his own reasons for what he did but that does not change the fact that he disobeyed my orders and attacked a teammate. Kakashi said. Excuse me but there is no question as to the action taken. The motivation does not matter. Mumakansu, the owner of the largest weapons supplier in the village said. Agreed. Under the shinobi articles it is ruled that Naruto will pay a tenth of the bounty for the missing nin Zabuza to the village as restitution, which according to the bingo book means he owes us 3 million ryo. The merchant said. Several of the merchants looked uncomfortable. The amount was exuberant, even a jonin would take several years to pay that back. That is outrageous. The Hokage said. Merchants cowered at the bloodlust he released upon them. It is within our power under the shinobi articles. A merchant said. You cannot expect a genin to pay such a fine. The Hokage said. Oh, we are willing to set up a payment plan. Another merchant said. I may be unable to change your decision but it is still within my power to postpone it. The Hokage said. Only until he become a chunin. Though for him that may be forever. Mumakansu said. You should not underestimate Naruto. Or myself. The Hokage said. Hiyashi left the meeting with two Hyuga elders. They were both frowning at the clan head. Why did you drop the charges? We could have pressed it. The merchants would have sided with us. Because ultimately the Hokage would have intervened and saved it. By dropping the charges due to a lack of evidence we have gained sympathy and a better position. Hiyashi said. Naruto's first idea was to go and eat as many bowls of ramen as he could stomach. But his clothes were ripped and stained from traveling almost non-stop. So he decided to return to his apartment first. After some time away it looked worse than he remembered. A pile of garbage bags had been stacked in front of his door. The word demon spray painted across the pile. He made several clones to clean up the mess. His apartment was untouched and he cleaned up before going to Ichiraku's. He had only gone a block before Iruka caught up with him. Heading out to eat. Of course. It's been too long since I had Ichiraku's ramen. Naruto said. My treat if you tell me how your mission went. Iruka said. Deal. Naruto said. Tsuki and Ayame were happy to see Naruto. Tsuki served him a large bowl. You wouldn't believe some of the rumors we've been hearing. Some merchant said you had kidnapped your friend Hinata. That's nothing. I heard you single-handedly killed the crime boss Gato. Iruka said. Naruto slurped the rest of his noodles. No, he blew himself up before I could. Ayame smacked him with a ladle. You were just supposed to escort some bridge builder. Ho. Did you manage to turn that into killing one of the richest men in the world? Naruto explained the mission, skimming over several parts and downplaying others. Still by the time he was finished there were 3 people planning ways to injure Kakashi. Iruka paid for their meals and excused himself. Naruto said goodbye to Tsuki and Ayame, then returned to his apartment via the village roofs. Next morning Naruto went to see the Hokage early. When he entered the Hokage's office he noticed the third looked older and more worn than he had before. Or maybe he was just imagining it. The Hokage moved a pile of scrolls from his desk and motioned for him to have a seat. Naruto went through the mission again. Not skimming or leaving anything out this time. When he finished the Hokage was slouched in his chair. You handled this mission better than I could have hopped. Are you concerned about Shino and Kiba knowing your secret? No, they're both good people. I just hope Kiba doesn't blurt it out by accident and get in trouble. Naruto said. I am proud of you, Naruto. The Hokage said. Thanks. Naruto said, rubbing the back of his neck. After reviewing your mission, it has been reclassified as a ranked. Here is your pay for it. The Hokage said, sliding an envelope to Naruto. What he didn't mention was that the council had confiscated his pay as part of his disciplinary punishment. The Hokage had pulled this pay from the village's funds. Specifically the portion set aside to pay members of the civilian council. Naruto opened it and looked at the small stack of ryo inside. There was almost 10,000 altogether. This is all mine. It is. The Hokage said. Do you know how much ramen I could buy with this? Naruto said. I would advise you to save it. I am afraid I have some bad news as well. The council, using a loophole in the shinobi articles, has fined you for interfering when Kakashi wished to follow Zabuza. The Hokage said. But Hinata and Kurenai-sensei were hurt. Naruto said. I agree with your actions, but the council argued that you did defy Kakashi, and regardless of the reason allowed Zabuza to escape. They have fined you a tenth of the reward offered for his death. The Hokage said. Naruto looked at his mission pay, imagining most of it flying away. How much do I have to pay? 3 million ryo. The Hokage said. What the hell? How am I supposed to get that much? Naruto said. Calm yourself. I have stalled the fine for now. I am sure there is a way to overturn their ruling and I will find it. For now, put it from your mind. The Hokage said. This sucks. Naruto said. I agree. Knowing what you know now, would you act differently in the same position? The Hokage said. Of course not. Hinata and Kurenai-sensei were hurt. I'd still do it even if it cost me 30 million ryo. Naruto said. Good. Unfortunately, that is only the council's punishment. Kakashi is also taking action to punish you. The Hokage said. What's he going to do? Naruto said. I do not know. He has arranged to come and get you soon. The Hokage said. A moment later and Kakashi walked into the office. Naruto, come with me. Kakashi led Naruto through the village and past the main gate. They kept walking until they came to an almost dry riverbed. A small stream still flowed down the middle of it. Stone ranging from the size of his fish to the size of him littered the riverbed. All of them had a red X spray painted on them. Your punishment is to clean this riverbed. Every spring it floods and brings these rocks down from the mountains. He pointed down river towards a stone bridge. Then upriver to a 7-foot-high waterfall. From that bridge to that waterfall. Every rock marked with an X needs to be removed. You will not be training with Squad 7 again until this is done. What? This will take all day. Naruto said. Which reminds me. You are forbidden from using any type of clone to assist in your punishment. Kakashi said. He pulled a Ta-G from his vest and wrapped it around Naruto's wrist. He bit his thumb and smeared his blood across the tag's edge. This will tell me if you try to use clones. You are to come here every day until all the marked rocks are gone. Do you understand? I do. Naruto said. Kakashi nodded and disappeared. Naruto spent the rest of the day moving rocks. The riverbed was deceptive. It looked dry, but that was only a thin surface layer. Underneath was a fine mud that sucked at his feet. Some of the rocks proved too big for him to move alone and he wasn't sure how he was going to deal with them. At the end of the day he returned home exhausted and collapsed onto his bed. He woke up to someone knocking on his door. He grabbed the kunai from under his pillow and slowly opened the door. Tenten was standing in the hall. Hey Naruto. What are you doing here? Naruto said. It's time to get you a decent set of weapons. Tenten said. Oh right, come on in, I just need a minute. Naruto said. Quickly he changed out of his muddy clothes and washed his feet, then grabbed the money he had gotten for the mission. He was pretty sure it was more than enough for a set of kunais. As they were leaving his apartment building, a thin man with a curled mustache walked towards them. Ah Naruto, so good to see you again. I heard you've had a difficult mission, in need of some new weapons. We've just got a new shipment in, top of the line. Naruto, who is this? Tenten said. Oh, this is the guy who sold me my last set of kunais. Naruto said. Mushi, of Numakansu Company. Maybe you've heard of us. Mushi said. I see. Tenten said. She pulled a scroll from her pocket and unsealed a large shuriken. She held it towards Mushi. That set was crap and you know it. I bet you charged him a premium price too. If I catch you pulling this again, I'll report you straight to the Hokage. Come now, surely such a young girl shouldn't get so excited. This is why females should not become shinobi. Mushi said. Muse. Hai was pinned to the wall by the shuriken. Naruto hadn't even seen Tenten move. Stay away from Naruto, and if you say females shouldn't become shinobi again, I'll cut out the reason you're called a man. Mushi nodded and hurried down the street. Tenten resealed the throwing star. Come on, let's go. Hey dad, I've brought you a new costumer. Tenten yelled. A middle-aged man came from a back room. Who's this? I told you, a customer. Dad, this is Naruto. Naruto dad. Tenten said. Naruto. Her father said. He raised an eyebrow but didn't do anything else. Yeah, I meet him and Neji's cousin on our last mission. Those jerks over at Mumakansu Company sold him a crap set of kunai. We even ran into one on the way over here that wanted to sell him another set. Tenten said. Well, I can't let a shinobi go into the field with bad weapons. Take a look at the sets and see what you like. Her father said. Naruto was immediately lost. There were so many weapons. An entire wall was taken up with swords. After looking along the shelves for several minutes, Naruto sat down on the floor holding his head. Oh man, I have no idea what I need. Well, you're pretty new, right? Tenten's father said. Yeah, Naruto said. Then you should be fine with the basic set. It's got kunai and shuriken. You don't need to bother with this other stuff until you've got a bit more experience under your belt. He said. Okay, then I guess I'll take that. Better make it too. Naruto said. Coming right up. He said, leading Naruto to the front of the shop. Alright, 2 basic sets coming to 2000 Ryo. Really? Naruto said. Yeah, they're good sets, so don't go trying to haggle with me. He said. But I paid more for the one set Tenten said was crap. Naruto said. Kid, you've got to shop around. Just cause someone says something is a deal doesn't mean it's true. He said. Oh right. Naruto said. He handed Naruto the 2 sets. Come back anytime. If you need more or just have questions. Alright, thanks. Naruto said. So find what you need. Tenten said. Yeah, your dad's nice. Naruto said. I know, going to go try them out. Tenten said. No, I have to clear rocks from a riverbed as punishment. Naruto said. Sounds boring. Tenten said. It is. Naruto said. Naruto spent the rest of the day at the riverbed. Still, by the time the sun was setting, he hadn't even finished a tenth of it. As he was walking back to his apartment, he saw Hinata carrying a shopping bag. Hey Hinata. Naruto. You look exhausted. Has Kakashi been training you hard? Hinata said. I haven't had time to train. Kakashi has me cleaning out a riverbed as punishment for stopping him and Sasuke from going after Zabuza. Naruto said. That's not fair. Hinata said. I know, it's been 2 days and I'm not even close to half done. Naruto said. I can help you. Hinata said. That's alright, no reason for both of us to lose out on training. Any word on Kurenai-sensei? Naruto said. Yes, she's back in the village and meeting with the Hokage tonight. We resume training tomorrow. Hinata said. I'm glad she made it back alright. Naruto said. Me too, Naruto. Don't overwork yourself, alright. Hinata said. You know me. Naruto said. Kurenai stood in front of the Hokage. He was reading over her report. Are you sure you feel up to resuming duty? Yes sir. I plan for my team to resume D-rank mission until we've had time to fully recover. Kurenai said. Very well, I will allow you to return to light duty for the time being. The Hokage said. Thank you, sir. What happened with Naruto? I haven't had a chance to find out yet. Kurenai said. She didn't want to add she had been afraid of asking the guards at the gate. The charges of kidnapping were dropped by Hiashi. However, Kakashi brought disciplinary action against him for stopping him and Sasuke from pursuing Zabuza. They have fined him a tenth of the reward for Zabuza. The Hokage said. But that would have to be in the millions. Kurenai said. 3 million. The Hokage said. That's absurd. How did they expect him to pay that? Kurenai said. She was already running through a list of council members who she knew the home address of. They wanted a payment plan. However, I was able to stop it for the time being. I am searching for a way to overturn the ruling, but it will take time. The Hokage said. And if you can't? Kurenai said. There are other methods. The Hokage said. Kurenai arrived at her team's meeting place to find them already waiting for her. Shino gave her a small nod. It is good to see you recovering. Thank you. Before we start, I want to say I am proud of the way all of you conducted yourself while I was incapacitated. Now shall we get to training? Kurenai said. She knew something was wrong when none of them answered. Hinata stepped forward. We have a request. What is that? Kurenai said. She couldn't imagine what had them acting so serious. Naruto is being punished by Kakashi for stopping him and Sasuke from going after Zabuza. We want to help him. Hinata said. I see, while I appreciate you wanting to help him, I do not think Kakashi will allow it. Kurenai said. That is not technically true. Shino said. I spoke with Naruto this morning. Kakashi only gave him 2 instructions. 1. That he may not use any type of clone to clear the riverbed. 2. That he removes all marked rocks. There was no forbid dance of help from others. I do not believe Kakashi even considered anyone would be willing to help him. I am still not comfortable going so close to usurping Kakashi's authority. No matter how much I might not like his actions. Kurenai said. You are aware of the conversation the 4 of us had on the ship while you were incapacitated. Shino said. I am. Kurenai said. And you know the 4 of us agreed to split the cost of the mission. I do not believe any of us meant only the responsibility of the deaths. Naruto's punishment is part of the cost and we wish to uphold our end of the agreement and assist him with it. Shino said. Kurenai looked over her 3 students. They all had determined looks, even Shino's body language, what she could see of it, had shifted slightly. She resolved not to mention the fine to them. Alright, but it's up to Naruto if he will accept your help or not. Naruto was lugging a large rock towards the riverbank when he heard Akamaru's friendly bark. What are you guys doing here? Kiba grinned. We heard you could use some help. Some real muscle. Yeah, Naruto said, then looked at Kurenai. Are you sure it's okay? I was out-reasoned. Kurenai said with a shrug. Kiba and Hinata took off their shoes and rolled up their pants. Shino stood on the bank directing his allies to gather the numerous small rocks. Naruto and Kiba began working on larger rocks Naruto had been unable to move alone. Kurenai watched them for a while, then decided to put her time to better use. You don't seem to need my help, so I am going to run some errands. Don't overwork yourselves. Any of you. Kurenai didn't have to look hard to find Kakashi. He was in his normal training field working with Sasuke. Sakura sat under a nearby tree with several scrolls. She spent more time watching Sasuke than studying. Do you even realize you've abandoned 2 of your students? Kurenai walked out of the wood and waved to Kakashi. May I have a few words in private? I suppose. Sasuke, keep practicing. Kakashi said. Sasuke shrugged as Kakashi followed Kurenai a little ways from the clearing. So what do you want? In a flash Kakashi was pinned to a tree, a kunai held under his covered eye. What the hell did you think you were doing? You could have told them Naruto didn't kidnap Hinata. You cost him 3 million ryo, I doubt even you have that much. And you tell him to clean up that river. You know some of those rocks would take several people to move. How I manage my students is none of your business. Kakashi said. He tried to move but Kurenai slammed him back against the tree. You're letting your hatred towards the 9 Tails ruin this team. Kurenai said. I will not train that demon. Sakura has excellent chakra control but no drive. The only one of them that can make it is Sasuke. Kakashi said. Then put into only train him and let the others go to someone who will teach them. Kurenai said. I have. The Hokage has blocked the motion. Now let me go. Kakashi said. Kurenai released him. You have no idea how badly you've screwed up, Kakashi. I will thank you not to interfere with my students again. Kakashi said. Kurenai nagged to regain her composure by the time she reached the river. They had made noticeable progress. A pile of small rocks twice the size of Shino stood next to the insect user. Naruto, Kiba and Hinata had another large pile along the bank. Still there were several large rocks they had to leave behind, even together they were unable to move them. Near noon they stopped for lunch. Kurenai watched in amusement as they sat on the bank eating, Kiba tossing treats for Akamaru. Naruto and Hinata stealing from each other's bento box. Shino feeding his insects. This was how Naruto should have been treated by his own teammates. By sundown they had cleared a large portion of the riverbed. Naruto, Hinata, Kiba and Shino stood around one of the large rocks trying to figure out how to move it. Akamaru. Had dug down to the bottom of the rock, but even with all 4 of them it hadn't budged. Shino had come down to the stone and let his allies roam around it. This stone has been here for several years. Notice the pattern left on the ground around it by the river. Even together we may have insignificant strength to move it. Kiba kicked it. You're probably right, you'd have to have some kind of freakish strength to move this. Perhaps we will be able to work out a solution by morning. Shino said. They had already received permission from Kurenai to continue to help Naruto until he was finished. As Naruto walked back to his apartment, he thought about the largest rocks. Kiba was right about needing freakish strength to move them, which meant he might have an idea. He was so caught up trying to figure out how he could get Lee to help him, he didn't notice a square box following him until it exploded and Konohamaru jumped onto his back. What do you think you're doing? Naruto said, grabbing the child from his back. Checking on you, boss. You've been back for days but you haven't come to see me. Konohamaru said. Sorry. My sensei has me cleaning a riverbed as punishment. Naruto said. What did you do? Konohamaru said. I stopped him and that jerk Sasuke from going after an A-ranked missing nin when Hinata and Kurenai sensei were hurt bad. Naruto said. Is Hinata okay? Konohamaru said. Yeah, Kiba and Shino have been helping me clean the river. Now you better get home before the old man starts to worry. Naruto said. He didn't want 4 Eyes showing up to lecture him again. For an elite ninja, that guy seemed to have a lot of free time. Sure thing, boss. Konohamaru said. The next morning Naruto got up earlier. The sun was barely out as he walked towards the training G. Round guy had told him he and Lee practiced at. When he got there he found the 2 of them hopping around, on one hand balancing a bucket of steaming water with their feet. Naruto wasn't sure how to get their attention without causing them to spill the water. Luckily Guy saw him. He kicked the bucket up, jumped to his feet and caught the bucket without spilling any water. A moment later Lee attempted it as well. Several drops spilled from his bucket. Naruto, so you've decided to join Lee and myself in our morning training after all? Guy said. I would like to, but Kakashi says I can't do any training till I finish my punishment. Naruto said. Lee looked stricken at the idea of being unable to train. Guy looked more thoughtful. I see. Somehow I don't think you came just to tell us that. Quote. Yeah, well, the thing is Kakashi never forbid me from getting help, just using clones. Hinata, Kiba and Shino helped me yesterday, but there are some rocks even the 4 of us can't move. So I thought La might be able to. Naruto said. I see. Well, Lee, what do you think? Guy said. If it is not breaking the rules of the punishment, then I see no reason not to help Naruto. Lee said. Very well, Lee M. I assist you until we meet with Tenten and Neji. Guy said. He did insist Lee finish his cool-down exercises before they went with Naruto. By the time they reached the riverbed, Hinata, Kiba and Shino were already there. Hinata smiled when she saw Lee, figuring out Naruto's plan. Lee looked at the rocks that were left in the otherwise cleaned area. He had lifted rocks for training before, not as large as these though. He jumped from the riverbank to the rock, and sank into the mud up to his waist. Guy-sensei, I think we may have a problem. So it would appear. I think you'll have to remove your weights. Guy said. But you said to only remove them when I was protecting the person I love. Lee said. Yes, I should amend that. When protecting the one you love or when they work against the terrain. Guy said. It had never occurred to him that Lee would risk his own life to follow his sensei's instructions. The thought brought tears to his eyes. Yes, Guy-sensei. Lee said, also tearing up. He made his way back to the bank and pulled a set of weights from around his ankles and wrists. Naruto looked at the weights and tried to move one. It was like Lee was wearing a boulder around each of his limbs. What's the point of wearing these? Lee was stretching, so Guy answered. It builds up Lee's endurance and strength, as well as speed and stamina. Watch. Lee walked back to the rock, wrapped both arms around it and pulled. The stone cracked where his fingers gripped it. With one fluid motion the rock popped free of the riverbank and flew through the air. It crashed into the bank several yards away, making the rest of them jump. He went to the next one. Lee, it would be better training to carry them. Guy said. By the time Lee and Guy went to meet with Tenten and Neji, most of the largest rocks were gone. Except for one that wouldn't budge more than a few inches even for Lee. By early afternoon less a fourth of the riverbed was left. Hey boss. Konohamaru said. Naruto looked. Up to see the Hokage's grandson standing on the riverbank. What are you doing here? I came to help, Konohamaru said, climbing down to the riverbed. Akamaru ran up to Konohamaru and began licking his face. Kiba grabbed him. What did I tell you about licking random people? Akamaru barked and wiggled out of his grip. Kiba chased his partner down the riverbed. Does father know you are spending your days playing in the mud? Said a condescending voice. Everyone turned to see a girl no older than Konohamaru standing by the riverbank. She had the same pale eyes as Hinata, with the same hint of pearls beneath. Hinata climbed up to the girl. Hanabi, what are you doing here? You should be in class. I saw him ditching and decided to follow. It was painfully easy, Hanabi said, nodding towards Konohamaru. Hey, Konohamaru said. You shouldn't have skipped. Hinata said. There is nothing they can teach me there. Hanabi said. Hey Hinata, who is this? Naruto said. Oh, excuse me, everyone, this is my younger sister Hanabi. Hanabi, these are my teammates Kiba and Shino, and this is Naruto. I believe you already know Konohamaru. Hinata said. I do, the teachers will not be pleased that you skipped. Hanabi said. Please don't tell them. Uruka-sensei will hang me by my ears. Konohamaru said. Alright then, but it will not come free. I want a practice match, this afternoon. Hanabi said. Hinata was shocked, both by Hanabi breaking the rules and her wanting to spar with Konohamaru. She'd never had a desire to fight anyone she thought was weaker than herself. And as passionate as Konohamaru might be, he was nowhere near her level. Alright, I'll show you what I can do. Konohamaru said. Hanabi sat down under a tree and watched them. Hinata checked her several times with her Byakugan, but she hadn't moved. If she didn't know better, she'd think her sister had fallen asleep. But her chakra network suggested otherwise. They were almost finished as the sun neared the horizon. Birds scattered from the trees. Lee emerged, followed by Guy and Tenten. Naruto. I have found help. Tenten will be able to move this most unyouthful boulder. No offense, but if you can't move it, how is Tenten supposed to? Naruto said. With these, Tenten said, holding up several explosive tags. Hinata, come help me for a second. Hinata walked over to the boulder with Tenten. Alright, I just need to find the weak points of the rock. Byakugan. Hinata said. She marked the deepest crack and where the stone was weakest. Tenten went to work. Kurenai watched with interest. Guy, is this safe? Oh yes, Tenten is a weapons expert. If it can cut, crush or explode, she can handle it. It is an interesting group that has come to help Naruto. I see the Hokage's grandson and Hinata's younger sister. Guy said. He does seem to have a talent for, I'm not even sure what you'd call it. It's criminal. Kakashi refuses to help him. Kurenai said. My eternal rival does seem to have smothered his flames of youth. Guy said. Looks like they're ready. Kurenai said. Tenten waved everyone back. Hinata was worried that Hanabi would ignore Tenten, but she stood and followed the rest of them to a safe distance. Tenten unsealed a bow and arrow, took aim at the rock, and fired. The explosion rocked the entire riverbed. Konohamaru started jumping up and down, yelling, along with Naruto. Hanabi watched the explosion with wide eyes. Her mouth slightly opened. She quickly composed herself before anyone noticed. They walked back towards the crater made by the explosive tags. The boulder had been turned into several manageable-sized rocks. Even Hanabi had come to look at the results of the explosion, not realizing until she was at the edge of the crater that she was standing ankle-deep in mud. The last rock, KS, quickly disappeared until the reverb was clear. Naruto couldn't stop grinning. Thanks everyone. Ramen, my treat for your help. Konohamaru was following everyone else when someone grabbed his scarf. Hanabi gave the end a tug. Have you forgotten our deal? Now, but I'm hungry. Konohamaru said. It will not take long. Hanabi said. Fine, hey boss, we'll catch up with you. Konohamaru said. Hanabi and Konohamaru found an open space along the riverbank. Konohamaru used the basic academy style. Hanabi shifted into her clan's stance. Do not worry, I will not use any chakra strikes. Alright, Konohamaru said and charged at Hanabi. She was unimpressed. His movements were good enough for the academy, but by her clan's standards he was barely moving. She easily dodged all of his attacks. She had a good idea of his abilities. She began overpowering him with her clan's style. If it had been a real fight, he would have been down in the first hit. Then he rolled under one of her strikes. Konohamaru had spied on Hinata and Naruto practicing before and knew the Hyuga style. He'd seen Naruto get inside Hinata's guard on the same strike Hanabi used. He followed Naruto's motions and came up right in front of her. Hanabi panicked. She struck Konohamaru in the side with a chakra strike. He collapsed and began rolling on the ground clutching his side. Hanabi stood frozen. He had just used the gentle fist on the Hokage's grandson. When her father found out. If Konohamaru didn't have her arrested before that. Konohamaru climbed to his feet. Man, that hurt as much as the boss said it did. Alright, let's try that again. You aren't angry, Hanabi said. Why should I be? Konohamaru said. Because I attacked you. Hanabi said. She couldn't believe the Hokage's grandson could be so stupid. Then she realized she had yelled at him. She blushed in embarrassment, her composure completely failing. So, isn't that what you're supposed to do in a match? Konohamaru said. Hanabi tried to regain some control over herself. How did you get inside my guard? Oh, I've seen that strike when the boss spars against Hinata. He figured out to roll under it and I just copied him. Konohamaru said. Hanabi was outraged. He was implying she made the same mistake as Hinata. But she could not lose her temper with Konohamaru. That was not what she was supposed to do. Why do you call him boss? Even my father says he is worthless. Then your father's as stupid as the rest of the adults in the village. Konohamaru said. My father is the head of the greatest clan in this village. Hanabi said. Quote, well, my grandpa is the head of the whole village. Konohamaru said. Why? Hanabi said. Why what? Konohamaru said. Why do you call him boss if all the adults dislike him? Hanabi said. Because he sees me for me. The first time we meet was when I pulled a surprise attack to try and take my grandpa's hat. You know what Naruto did? He hit me on the head and told me that hat would be his. Konohamaru said. Hanabi was shocked. Was he arrested? Laying a finger on the Hokage's family was a capital offense. No way. Grandpa couldn't stop laughing at us. After that, boss became my eternal rival. Konohamaru said. Maybe the Hokage is as crazy as the elders think. So he hit you and you make him your boss. Hanabi said. Well, yeah, but it's cause he didn't care if I was the Hokage's honorable grandson. Do you have any idea what it's like always being in someone's shadow? Before Naruto, I doubt 5 people in this village even knew my name. It was always honorable grandson this and honorable grandson that. I hated it, Konohamaru said. For a moment thoughts of her father's training fluttered through her mind, but she shook it away. You are strange, Konohamaru. Hanabi said, intentionally using his name since he had expressed a dislike for people who did not. Konohamaru smiled. Thanks. So can we eat now? Yes, I will not tell anyone you skipped class today. Hanabi said. Thanks. Konohamaru said, giving her a quick hug. Hanabi was so surprised she almost used the gentle fist on him again. He let go and ran towards the village. Hanabi returned to her home instead of following the other to eat. A branch member told her Hiyashi was waiting to speak with her. She entered his study. Hiyashi took in his daughter's appearance. Her feet were dirty and hair matted with dust. Your instructors informed me you skipped several classes today. I assume you have a very good reason for this, and your appearance. I do, I had an opportunity to advance my mission. Hanabi said. And, Hiyashi said, I followed Konohamaru when he skipped class. I was able to establish a line of communication as well as trust with him. Hanabi said. Good. The Hokage's grandson will be a valuable person someday. Did you find anything else of interest? Hiyashi said. Hanabi thought of Hinata helping Naruto, who she had been told to stay away from, and even training with him. No sir. Very well, clean yourself up. Hiyashi said. Naruto made his way to Team 7's usual training ground. He couldn't wait to see Kakashi's face when his sensei saw the cleared riverbed. Sasuke and Sakura were already there when he arrived. Sasuke didn't acknowledge Naruto. Sakura scowled, pulled him away from the training ground. What are you doing here? Kakashi-sensei said you would be doing a punishment for the next month. I finished early. Naruto said. Then go pretend you didn't. Sakura said. What does it matter to you? Naruto said. Because you're. Just shut up. Sakura said. She swung at Naruto's head but he jumped backwards. Sakura glared at him, then returned to standing near Sasuke. blushing lightly as she watched him. Naruto stood further away looking at them. It didn't take a genius to figure out this wasn't a real team. Spending all that time working on the riverbed with Hinata and her team, even Lee and Tenten had just highlighted that point. Oddly enough, Naruto actually found himself feeling sorry for Sakura and Sasuke. Sakura was sabotaging her dream of being with Sasuke by spending all her time daydreaming about him. And Sasuke was being lied to by the village, just like he was. Given they hadn't tried to kill him, Kakashi wasn't going to do anything to fix it. Man, we're one screwed up group. Naruto said. I'm sorry Naruto, did you say something? Kakashi said, appearing behind him. I thought I had said no training until you finished your punishment. I'm done. Naruto said. You'll forgive me if I doubt you. Sasuke, Sakura, we're going on a little field trip. Kakashi saw it leading them to the riverbed Naruto was assigned to clean. Sasuke scowled at another interruption to his training. When they arrived, Kakashi looked at the pile of rocks stacked along the riverbank. I told you no clones. I didn't. See, Naruto said, holding up his arm. Kakashi's paper seal was still on his wrist. Kakashi examined it. How did you do it then? Trade secret. Naruto said. Fine, you can study with Sakura today. Kakashi said. Sakura sulked as they returned to the training field. Kakashi and Sasuke began a series of practice fights, Sasuke mimicking Kakashi's taijutsu. While Naruto and Sakura read through a pile of scrolls Kakashi had given them. Naruto scowled at the scrolls. They were basic lessons from the academy. There wasn't a single jutsu in any of them. Not that Sakura seemed to mind. She spent most of the morning and early afternoon watching Sasuke with a faraway look in her eyes. He wondered if he had the same look when he was watching Hinata. Hey Sakura, Naruto said. What? Sakura said. I've got a question. Naruto said. This is basic stuff. Sakura said. It's not this junk. It's about Sasuke. Naruto said. Sakura studied his face, sure he was pulling some kind of prank. Alright, what? And if you think I'll give away any of his secrets, forget it. Sakura said. Whatever, you like Sasuke, right? Naruto said. Of course, every girl in the village does. Sakura said. Naruto thought about Hinata, she definitely didn't, and Tenten seemed too smart to have a crush on Sasuke. Alright, so answer me this. If his goal is to get stronger, do you really think he'll go for a girl who isn't? Look at him, now you. Studying basic stuff from the academy isn't going to make you any better. Shut up. What would you know about girls? Sakura said, grabbing a scroll and stalking away. Towards sunset, Kakashi called them together. I will be taking Sasuke on a short training trip. The two of you will have to make do with yourselves while we are gone. Naruto walked through the village thinking. Today had proved to him Kakashi was only going to focus on Sasuke. So if he wanted to improve, he'd have to go around his sensei. Taijutsu wasn't a problem. Guy and Lee could help him there. He hoped Kurenai sensei would be able to help him with the other stuff. He decided to go ask her right then. Her home was near the edge of the village among a set of older but well-kept houses. Wild gardens dominated the small yards. Moths lazily flew around street lamps. Kurenai's home was set further back than the others. A twisting stone path led from the front gate to the porch. There was more order to the large bushes that dotted her yard than her neighbors. A fresh coat of paint covered the front of her home. He hesitantly knocked on the large oak door. Kurenai was surprised when she opened the door and found Naruto standing on her porch. Hello Naruto. Hi Kurenai sensei. I have a favor to ask. Naruto said. Well, come in and tell me what you need. Kurenai said. Naruto walked in and she motioned him to a comfortable couch. It was better than his bed. Kurenai gave Naruto a minute to examine the couch and the rest of her living room. She had a this was one of the first times he had ever been welcome in someone else's home. His eye lingered on the family photos along the mantel. She wondered if he had any of his own parents. You said you had a favor to ask me. Oh right. Well, Kakashi is taking Sasuke on a training trip and, well, he's completely abandoned me and Sakura. Naruto said. Kurenai nodded. She had known that, but let Naruto figure it out at his own pace. And you'd like me to train you along with Hinata, Kiba and Shino? Yes. Naruto said. I will do what I can, but I have to focus on them first. With the Chunin exams coming up, Kurenai said. I understand. Naruto said smiling. Meet with us tomorrow at the normal time. Kurenai said. Naruto nodded and left. Kurenai sat down at her table and thought about how to train Naruto. A cup of tea growing cold by her hands. Finally she decided to go speak with the Hokage. She wasn't surprised to find him still in his office. He worked through more nights than he should. The Hokage smiled when she entered. He had been thinking it was about time for a break from the endless paperwork. He hadn't been ahead on it for years. Not since he had become too old to throw away chakra on clones to assist him. Hello sir. Kurenai said. Hello Kurenai, please take a seat. I take it this isn't a social visit. The Hokage said. I want to speak to you about Naruto. Kurenai said. Go on. The Hokage said. Well sir, Kakashi has abandoned Naruto and Sakura to train Sasuke exclusively. Tonight Naruto came to my home asking that I help train him. Kurenai said. I see. I had hoped Kakashi's value of teamwork would be enough to keep him from abandoning Naruto. The Hokage said. I do not mean to sound rude, but clearly you were mistaken. Kurenai said. Her tone bit deep into the old man. What do you intend to do? The Hokage said. I'll teach him everything I can. That's why I'm here. I don't know where to start. His early training at the academy was so distorted I don't know where to start. I am sure Kakashi will enter them in the Chunin exam. Kurenai said. And you wish to give Naruto the best chance in the exams as he can have. And show Kakashi that he was wrong for ignoring him. The Hokage said. Yes, sir. Kurenai said. Well, what does he have a talent for? The Hokage said. Even after all these years he couldn't resist teaching. Pranks. Kurenai said immediately. Then saw the Hokage's look. He wanted a better answer. Improvising, he is good at strategy. Very imaginative. And what do those attributes suggest he would be good at? The Hokage said. Genjutsu. Kurenai said. Her own specialty. But he doesn't have any talent for it. Think beyond the 3 basic types of jutsu. The Hokage said. Kurenai thought. She knew many of the sub-jutsu types, shurikenjutsu, senjutsu, nintajutsu, kenjutsu. None of them stood out in her mind as something Naruto would be able to use, at least not in time for the exam. I can't think of any that he would be able to learn quick enough. What about fuinjutsu? The third said. Fuinjutsu, sealing techniques. Isn't that a bit advanced for Naruto? Kurenai said. Now who is underestimating him? The third said. I have a feeling he will excel in this field. And while it is typically thought to be less effective in a direct fight, I am confident that Naruto can surprise us. True, but I only know the very basics of fuinjutsu. And I don't know of any masters. Kurenai said. Yes, there are few masters of the sealing arts, even fewer since our sister village was destroyed. But I might be able to help. The third said. He moved to a low bookcase and began shifting through scrolls. It should be here. Ah, there it is. Kurenai took a thick scroll from the Hokage. A fuinjutsu scroll. These are pretty rare. Yes, especially this type. They were used in Uzushiogakure, the village hidden by whirling tides to train promising student of fuinjutsu. I think Naruto will find it very interesting. The Hokage said. Thank you. I have one more request. Would it be possible to have Naruto switched to my team, at least temporarily, so that he can assist us with D-ranked missions? Kurenai said. I believe I can do that. The third said. Naruto trudged down the street. It was too early for anyone to be up. Still, this was when Guy and Lee trained and he was determined to make up for what Kakashi wasn't teaching him. Sure enough, they were in the middle of a set of one-armed push-ups when he arrived. Guy smiled when he saw Naruto and front-flipped, landing just a foot in front of him. Your youthful flames burned brightly this morning. Quote. Thanks. So I'm allowed to train again. Naruto said. Wonderful. Now before we start I must ask you a question. Do you want us to fix your taijutsu and bring you to the normal level? Or do you wish to fan the flames of youth into an inferno and challenge Lee and myself? Guy said. The second one, I think. Whichever will make me stronger. Naruto said. A youthful inferno it is. Let us begin. I have seen your fighting style and your endurance. While you are creative, you waste too much energy when you are attacking. You also lack the speed necessary to accompany some of your movements. We will only focus on your taijutsu, so as long as you are training with us you will refrain from using any clones unless instructed otherwise. Guy said. Yes, Guy sensei. Naruto said. Good. Now I will teach you a more aggressive style of offensive taijutsu. Horse style is purely offensive. I have chosen it for you because on its own it is strong, when combined with chakra it is devastating. Your stamina and unbelievable chakra capacity will lend themselves well to this style. For now though you will learn it without using chakra. Mimic my stance. Guy said. He moved into a stance with his feet apart and arms raised at his side. Naruto took the same stance. Lee walked up next to him and examined the position of his body. Then made corrections, turning Naruto's foot, pulling his arms in closer. Guy watched and nodded at the adjustments. Good, now follow my movements. Slowly Guy extended his right fist, shifting his foot forward. Naruto followed. Lee watched and moved his fist back in when the slow punch went wide. They went through an entire set of punches and kicks in slow motion, Lee correcting Naruto as they went. By the end Naruto is frustrated with all the minor corrections. If it wasn't for all his practicing with Hinata he would have thought they were pointless. But he had learned, painfully, it was the small adjustments that made the biggest difference. Good. Now a lap around the training ground and repeat. Guy said. They continued for 2 hours, one set of then a lap, then another set. Guy and Lee corrected his movements again and again. To his credit Naruto rarely made the same mistake twice, but he seemed to continuously find new ways to mess up the set. Finally Guy had him stop. Good. You will repeat the set 30 times throughout the day. Now to work on your defense. You seem to be good at the Hyuga style, and once you are proficient enough in you will be able to quickly switch between them. Lee, it's time. Yosh, I have been waiting for this. Lee said. Naruto, for the next hour, you will only dodge and defend. Guy said. What followed was an hour of pain. Lee was determined to get in as many hits as he could. Even pulling his attacks at the last second, each one that landed felt like being hit with a bowling ball. Naruto quickly realized the defending wasn't going to help, he had to dodge. Lee's fist passed his head by an inch, then over as Lee swung his arm. Naruto could barely keep up with Lee's movements. Then Lee's foot caught him as he moved away from a punch. Naruto went down and Lee began a full-out assault, not giving him time to recover. Naruto rolled, pumping chakra into his legs and pushing off, breaking the assault for a second and giving him a chance to get back on his feet. By the time the hour was over Naruto was sure he was purple with bruises. Guy patted him on the back, hard, where Lee had landed several shots. I am impressed, not many people could last against that. Before tomorrow you should acquire a set of training weights. Tenten's father sells them. Put them on and do not take them off unless it is a matter of life or death. And do not go overboard. The basic set will do for now. Yes Guy-sensei. Naruto said. Guy and Lee watched Naruto walk towards the village. Guy nodded to Lee. Well done. 2019 hits. As agreed I will HU a new technique for each 1000 hits. Naruto rolled his shoulder as he walked toward Ichiraku Ramen. If every morning was like this he'd either die or be able to take on a charging bull. 2 young men in expensive silk were sitting at the counter when he arrived. So I told them if they couldn't pay I would simply take the supplies back. It mattered very little to me whether they were able to rebuild their farms. Ruffians. No understanding of commerce, said the other man. What is that? Said the first looking at Naruto. I believe that is one of those shinobi this village is so famous for. Said the second. No class. The first said pulling out a handkerchief and covering his mouth. They quickly left. Chuki cleaned off the counter. Damn merchants, never even tip. So Naruto you're here early. We haven't even started the ramen yet. But you're a ramen stand, how can you not have ramen? Naruto said. Because as good as business is in the evenings we do a good breakfast trade too. Not a lot of people want ramen this early. Chuki said. Naruto looked horrified at the thought of someone not wanting ramen. So what do you guys serve for breakfast? Steamed rice, boiled fish and pickles. Along with tea. Chuki said. I guess I'll have that. Naruto said. Ayame ran in from the kitchen and grabbed Naruto's head. What's wrong? Are you hurt? Sick? Poisoned? Ayame calm down. Chuki said. I will not. Naruto just ordered something besides ramen. Oh god it's the end of the world. Ayame said. Chuki shoved her back into the kitchen. Sorry, she can be a bit dramatic in the mornings. Good for keeping young merchants in line. He set Naruto's order on the counter. It wasn't nearly as good as ramen, but it wasn't too bad either. He left with a full stomach. The morning was still cool, but the sun promised a hot day. He reached the training ground before anyone else and sat down in the shade of a tree, watching the shadows play across the grass. Kiba and Akamaru were the first to arrive. Akamaru jumped onto Naruto and started licking his face. Kiba glared at him. Traitor. So what are you doing here? Kakashi took Sasuke on a training trip, so Kurenai-sensei said I could train with you guys. Naruto said. Good, I can finally get a chance to show you how a real shinobi works. Kiba said. Dream on. Naruto said. Naruto, you're training with us. Hinata said, walking into the clearing. Yeah, Kakashi ditched me to train Sasuke. Naruto said. Kiba nudged Hinata with his elbow. Not thinking of skipping training to go make out with him, or you? Hinata and Naruto blushed at the idea. When Shino arrived, he raised an eyebrow at Naruto and Hinata's behavior. Kiba's stifled laughter made him think better of questioning them. Kurenai arrived shortly after Shino. Alright everyone. As I'm sure you know, Naruto will be joining our team while Kakashi is out of the village. Now I have something important to speak with all of you about. I have decided, if you wish, to allow you to participate in the Chunin exam. Naruto, I am sure Kakashi has already decided to enter your team. Sensei, I understand that the Chunin exam can be dangerous. On average there are 3 deaths every exam. And more who are injured in such a way as to be forced to give up the career of a shinobi. Do you believe we are prepared for this? Shino said. Normally I would not allow you to participate until the next exam, but considering all of your actions in Wave, as well as the fact the exam is being held in Konohagakure, which has the lowest fatality rate, I am prepared to offer you the chance. Kurenai said. So you do not expect us to pass this attempt, but you hope the experience will increase our chances of survival in future exams. Shino said. Not how I would have put it, but yes. Not to say you don't have a chance, but the odds of a new Genin team passing are very low. Kurenai said. So what's the exam like? Naruto said. He was bouncing on his feet at the thought of becoming a Chunin. That's difficult to say. The exam is never the same. Every 6 months it is held in a different one of the 5 great villages. Several Jonin from that village are chosen to act as proctors. Each is in charge of a different phase of testing, and they have nearly unlimited freedom to do as they like. Kurenai said. Then all of the participants are going into the exam blind. Shino said. Yes, but as I said, it is up to each of you to decide if you wish to participate. I should tell you that the first part of the exam is a team phase. If one member of a team does not take the exam, the others won't be allowed to participate either. At some point the teams will be disbanded and it will become a free-for-all. Normally I wouldn't have told you about the team condition, but I believe you are all mature enough to understand if one of you does not feel up to. Kurenai said. Well, I'm in. Kiba said. It would be a beneficial experience. Shino said. It won't be any safer if we wait. Hinata said. I am glad all of you feel ready. This morning I will cover past exams to give you a better idea of what you may face. Kurenai said. What was yours like? Naruto said. The exam I passed was held in Sunagakure. For the first phase, 1 member of each team was poisoned. The remaining 2 members had to cure them before they passed out. Luckily I was the one poisoned. I was the least skilled with antidotes. Kurenai said. They poisoned you? Hinata said. Yes, it wasn't a lethally dose, but at the time we were led to believe it was. Kurenai said. So proctors may lie and deceive us. Shino said. It has happened. The second phase was an endurance test. We had to spend 3 days running across the desert, reaching checkpoints in a set amount of time. There were several casualties. I had to put a genjutsu on my teammates and myself to push us through. Kurenai said. How many phases are there? Kiba said. It depends, there's no set limit. There was once an exam with 12 phases. No one managed to pass. As a general guideline there are normally between 3 and 6. Kurenai said. So what was the next phase? Naruto said. A written test on tactics. Then a hunt. We were released into the mountains and hunted by sand shinobi. The last phase was a free-for-all. We were each told to defeat the other members of our team. Kurenai said. So we may have fight our fellow leaf shinobi or even our teammates, Shino said. There is a chance. Kurenai said. It doesn't matter who I'm up against, I'll beat them. Naruto said. You do realize you may have to face Hinata in combat. Shino said. Naruto hung his head. Man, I hope not, she still kicks my butt in spars. Naruto, that's not true, you win as many matches as you lose. Hinata said. Thanks, but I still lose a lot more than I win. Naruto said. Now then, Kurenai interrupted. Today I will go over individual tactics with each of you. While I do that, I want two of you to spar while the third person rest. Winner keeps going. They nodded their understanding. Shino was the first person to speak with Kurenai-sensei. Kiba and Hinata sparred while Naruto watched. Hinata won the match, but before she and Naruto could start, Kurenai called her over. Naruto found himself facing Shino. The insect user strung Naruto along. Every time Naruto got close, Shino's allies would swarm him. Shino also had a longer reach than Naruto, meaning he could attack while he retreated. Naruto had decided to try and win a match without using clones. But one-on-one he could see the difference in skills between himself and the others. Finally, frustrated, he made a dozen clones and swarmed Shino. All but two were destroyed, but they were enough for Naruto to win. While Kiba spoke with Kurenai-sensei, Hinata slid into her stance. Naruto made two clones and surrounded her. The match lasted less than a minute before Hinata had him pinned, her hand hovering over his chest. She quickly got off and helped him up. Anai hid a smile as she noticed Shino with a small camera. Very good, Naruto, if you'll follow me. He nodded and they walked a short ways away. You're training with Guy and Lee in the mornings? Kurenai said. Yes. Naruto said. Good. That will go a long way in your training. I spoke with the Hokage and he believes you may have a talent for Fuinjutsu. Kurenai said, pulling out the scroll the Hokage had given her. Sealing techniques are normally one of the hardest types of jutsus to learn. However, given your flexible mentality, you should be able to use it in the Chunin exam. Naruto opened the scroll. It was complex. Filled tiny delicate writing and diagrams. Naruto had his doubts about it but thanked Kurenai anyways. The rest of that day was spent going over past exams. After they were dismissed, Naruto bought a set of weights from Tenten's father and practiced his Uma set. The following days were much the same. Practicing Uma with Guy and Lee, then an hour of trying not to be Byatte. To badly while Lee attempted to knock him out. It only took a few sessions for Naruto to realize the Lee was holding back, improving as Naruto progressed. Despite how tired he was after their morning training, Naruto began to travel by roofs to his normal breakfast at Ichiraku's. He usually had time for several sets of Uma before Team 8 meet for the day. The forenoon was spent reviewing tactics. Sometimes Kurenai would work only with Team 8, leaving Naruto to practice Uma or study from the sealing scroll. Afternoons were used to complete D-ranked missions. There were always plenty, with the village preparing for the festival that always came before the Chunin exams when it was held in Konohagakure. His nights were spent practicing Fuinjutsu. The intricate details needed for different T-seals caused him no end of trouble, but he forced himself to slowly make each mark. When Kakashi and Sasuke returned, Naruto continued to meet with Team 8. There was an unspoken understanding. Kakashi didn't care what he did so long as he wasn't disrupting Sasuke's training. A week after Naruto joined Team 8, they were assigned to assist an elderly couple in moving from above their store so their grandson could take over it. The woman made a face when she saw Naruto, but she quickly covered it. She was silent while they moved them from the apartment above the store to another one down the street. Naruto's clones did most of the heavy lifting, allowing them to complete the mission in only a few trips. It would have been quicker, but he was limited in the number of clones he could make by the size of the apartment. They began to follow the man back to do one last check of the property when the woman reached out and took Naruto's shoulder. Would you mind staying and helping me unpack the kitchen? Sure, Naruto said. As Naruto unpacked dishes and handed them to the woman, she chatted with him. So you are working to become a full ninja of the village? I am, Naruto said. It's a noble thing. Our son was a jonin. He passed several years ago, but not before he blessed us with our grandchild. Such a good boy. It's comforting to know he'll be taking over our shop. She said. I'm sorry about your son, Naruto said. The woman looked at him surprised. You really are sorry? Most people just say that because they think it's polite. How about I make you some tea? No thank you, Naruto said. I insist. It'll give me a chance to use this new teapot I bought, she said, ushering Naruto to the table. The tea was good. Naruto sipped it, wondering if this was what it was like to have a grandmother. He rolled out of the chair as a kunai slashed the table. The woman was holding it with both hands, trembling. You killed him, this was his, now I'll kill you with it. After trying with Guy and Lee, it was easy to doge her. She lunged at him, slicing into a box of clothing, then knocking over a lamp. Naruto tried to figure out a way to stop her without hurting her when she froze. Kurenai stood at the door. The elderly man was behind her with a look of horror on his face. Kurenai tried to keep her voice level. What are you trying to do? Kill that monster. He took our son. She moved towards him. Smoothly Kurenai stepped between them and disarmed her. You have committed a capital offense, attacking a shinobi of the village. Kurenai said. I don't care. What have I got to lose? She said, spitting at Naruto. I'll show you. Kurenai said, reaching out to take her into custody. Naruto stopped her. Kurenai-sensei, please don't. Naruto, she tried to kill you. Kurenai said. It wasn't exactly the worst attempt I've seen. Besides, what would happen if you took her in? Naruto said. Best case prison, worst case death. Kurenai said. She's just old and upset. Can we please just forget this happened? Naruto said. Naruto, she broke the law. Kurenai said. Yeah, but she tried to kill me, so shouldn't I have a say? What good will turning her in do? It'd just ruin more lives. Naruto said. Kurenai ground her teeth together. She had been itching to catch someone attacking Naruto so she could make an example of them, and here he was trying to get his would-be murder off the hook. She glared at the woman. Be glad Naruto is more compassionate than I am. That monster is nothing but a blemish on the land, a crusted murderer. She said. Her husband put his hand over her mouth. She bit him. Kurenai ushered Naruto from the apartment. You would have been within your right to defend yourself. She was just an old lady that missed her kid. Besides, how old it have looked to have an old lady arrested, and she wasn't even that dangerous. I could have dodged her all day. Can we not mention this to anyone else? Naruto said. Very well. Kurenai said. Huff. She made a mental note to tell the Hokage. The next day, Guy said Naruto was moving well enough with his weights on to add more. After he meet with Hinata, Kiba and Shino for their training, he went to Tenten's father's shop to get more weights. He also hoped Tenten's father would be able to help him with a problem he had. Tenten's father smiled when he saw Naruto, one of the few shop owners who did so. What can I get you today? Another set of kunai. More weights, and I have a problem I hoped you could help me with. Naruto said. I can try, he said, setting some weights on the counter. What's the problem? Well, I found a seal for explosive tags and I wanted to test it out. But I wasn't sure where I could do it without people getting mad. Naruto said. Well, I have a plaque. Set up out back where I test explosive tags. Have to make sure they work after all. We can test yours out there, he said. Awesome. Naruto said. Tenten, come watch the shop. Me and Naruto will be out back for a few minutes, he said. There was a large yard behind the store. Naruto saw seals on the fences. They looked like they were to prevent noise from going beyond the fence. He wondered how Tenten's father tested explosive tags. Naruto handed over one of the tags he had made the night before. Tenten's father studied it. It's an interesting seal. I recognize some parts from old art tags, but I've never seen this exact style. Well, let's see what you have. He attached the tag to a blackened stump and they moved behind a low stone wall. Tenten's father threw a kunai to trip the tag. The explosion knocked them over. Chunks of earth fell as they climbed back to their feet. The stump was gone, along with the surrounding soil. Tenten's father grinned like a madman. Kid, that was one hell of an explosive tag. Tenten ran out of the store. What happened? Nothing to worry about. Just testing an explosive tag. Her father said. Nothing to worry about. It sounded like you set off a whole pack. Come on Naruto, you help me in the back while dad deals with the Jonin that'll come to investigate that explosion, Tenten said, dragging Naruto into the shop. Once they were in RGE storage room, the stern look dropped from her face. Alright, level with me. How many tags did he set off? Just one, Naruto said. Really? Did he say where he got it? Tenten said. I made it. Naruto said. You You made that explosive tag. Any chance I could buy a set? Tenten said. She had the same look as her father. After your help with that boulder at the river you can have them. Naru. Said, handing over the rest of the tags. He felt sorry for whoever she decided to use the again. Her father came in a few minutes later. Okay, I got everything straightened out. Plus several orders for those tags. If you'd care to make some more. Sure, Naruto said. Tenten's father was one of the few shop owners who didn't chase him out. It would feel good to repay his kindness. Thanks, I think they'll be a new bestseller. He said. 2 weeks before the Chunin exams, Naruto, Hinata, Shino and Kiba were assigned to set up a large stand for the festival. The man who put in the mission request looked them over. Are you sure you can control them? I know how rowdy kids can be. He never took his eyes off of Naruto. Kurenai fixed him with her icy stare. They are all shinobi, however. If you would prefer to cancel the mission, we will be on our way. No, as long as you have everything under control. He said. The work, which should have taken all afternoon, went quickly with several Narutos making the signs. The owner gave Hinata a slip for an order of food for the festival. She was tempted to mention that they had only been hired to set up the stall, instead she used the opportunity to leave. She had noticed him watching her as they worked. Wait up, Hinata, Naruto said, running to catch up to her, a stack of signs in his arms. Mind if I tag along? We can put them up. As we go and I'll help carry the shopping. Plus that old guy keeps complaining about my penmanship. Of course, but will they be alright if you leave? Hinata said, nodding towards the other Narutos making more signs. Naruto shrugged. I assume so. They hung signs as they walked towards the market. Naruto also took the opportunity to buy several bags of instant ramen and at Hinata's urging fresh fruit. The store owner frowned at Naruto, but his greed won out. He pulled out his frog-shaped wallet and grinned as he paid. I borrow it before we left. Mind if we drop off this stuff before we go back to the stall? Of course not. I can help you put them up if you'd like. Hinata said. No, that's all right, I'll just toss them in the kitchen. Naruto said. He didn't want her to see his apartment, he had fallen behind in cleaning again. He opened his door and saw the explosive tags and the wire connected to them. They were the ones he had given to Tenten's father for his shop. The explosion ripped apart the building. Rubble rained down several blocks away. The fireball was seen from all corners of the village, briefly illuminating the Hokage's tower. Windows shattered throughout the district. Kiba covered his ears as the Narutos dropped what they were doing. Hinata. Naruto and his clones raced towards his apartment, dropping his weights. He was mildly annoyed that one of the clones had stolen his wallet and ditched them to go with Hinata, but it was almost instantly replaced with panic. There had been enough explosive tags to destroy half the building. Several Jonin were cautious why making their way towards the source of the explosion, fearing a full-scale invasion had starting. Naruto dashed past them. The street outside his apartment was filled with rubble, part of it had caved in from the force of the explosion. Broken glass littered the surrounding area. Naruto spotted Hinata lying along the far side of the street. Glass splinters formed a half circle around her. He missed his clones as he dropped down to her. Hinata. Naruto said, scooping her up. She was pale with a deep gash on her forehead. She stirred. What happened? My idiot clone set off a booby trap. Naruto said. He was yanked back by a Jonin, dropping Hinata. The Jonin pressed Naruto against a wall, slamming his head back. Finally got you, demon. Another held a kunai to his neck, lightly pressing the blade into Naruto's skin. They each held a hand so he couldn't use any jutsus. Tried to blow up the village again. No one will stop us this time. Naruto kicked out. It was hard to judge his actions without the weights. The Jonin was thrown back coughing. The second Jonin hesitated. Naruto used the chance to slip away and move into a defensive stance. The first grabbed Naruto from behind, holding him up with his hands apart. The second charged. Hinata's hand shot out, striking his leg. Something struck the Jonin holding Naruto. He fell as the Jonin was knocked back. The Hokage stood, his bones cracking. I'm too old for this. Quote, what are you doing? He attacked us and tried to destroy the village. One of the Jonin said. By destroying his own apartment. The Hokage said. Anbu appeared behind the Jonin, securing them. The Hokage motioned for more Anbu to keep the public back. A medic nin was already examining Hinata. Naruto, what happened? Someone set explosive tags in my apartment, one of my clones set them off. Is Hinata going to be alright? Naruto said. The Hokage looked at the medic nin who nodded. The cut on Hinata's head was already healed. Yes, she will be fine. I promise we will find whoever who did this. I think I can help. The explosive tags were ones I made and gave to Tenten's father to sell in his store. He might have a record of who bought them. Naruto said. The Hokage sent another Anbu to look into who had bought the explosive tags. Kurenai, followed by a winded Kiba and Shino, dropped to the street. Naruto. What's going on? I thought I had taught you better than to just run off like that. Before he could answer, she began checking him and Hinata for injuries. Naruto struggled to get away. The Hokage was torn between helping Naruto and containing his amusement. The light-hearted mood was broken by a heavy-set man wearing stained clothes. He was attempting to run towards them, shouting threats at Naruto between gasps for breath. You've done it now. I'll have this taken out of your hide. You'll pay to have my building rebuilt. I'll make you do it brick by brick till your hands bleed. Naruto glared at his landlord. Why did everyone think it was his fault that his apartment exploded? As the man neared them, he found Kurenai blocking his path, a kunai at his neck and another at his groin. Threaten Naruto again and I will hurt you. At this point you are as much of a suspect in this as anyone else. Me. But my building is destroyed. The landlord said. Whoever set this up got in somehow. Kurenai said. She didn't honestly believe he had been involved. He was too much of a coward. Kurenai, enough. Release him. This was the result of an attack on a shinobi of the village and the village will pay for repairs. The Hokage said. When Naruto had run from the stall screaming Hinata's name, Kurenai hadn't heisted before following Shino and Kiba right behind her. Shino considered himself fast, but even he was hard-pressed to match his sensei's speed. A Jonin had made the mistake of attempting to intercept them. Kurenai froze him with a genjutsu. When they reached the source of the explosion, Shino had scattered his allies to assess the situation. Part of his mind listened to Kurenai scolded Naruto and part took in the information from his allies. The damage was bad. The building had been separated from its foundation, support beams were no longer connected. Interestingly enough, Naruto seemed to be the only tenant. Thankfully someone had turned off the power and gas to the building, but not the water. Broken pipes spewed water into the basement. The force of the explosion seemed to have been directed upwards and towards the back of the building. It had clearly been done so that whoever set it off would take the blunt of the force. It also explained why a large portion of what would have been Naruto's living room was in the street. However, a majority of the damage had not been caused by the explosion but by years of neglect. He turned his attention to the landlord and Hokage. You may wish to postpone paying this man until you have completed a full investigation. Shino said. What are you playing at, you brat? The landlord said. My allies have checked the structure. While it will need to be torn down, a majority of the damage was already present. I believe by the building codes of the village this structure should have been condemned. There will also need to be an investigation as to why it was not condemned in a past inspection. Shino said. That's a lie. My buildings are in immaculate condition. He said. The Hokage rested his hand on the landlord's shoulder and squeezed hard. I agree, we cannot simply allow your name to be tarnished. I will have a team of inspectors review this building, as well as any others you own. So there can be no question as to your integrity. The landlord swallowed but nodded. Kurenai signaled Team 8 and Naruto out of the street. Kiba eyed the Jonin who had put out lingering fires. We couldn't find any sense. My allies found traces of a substance used to conceal the user's scent and chakra. This was well planned, Shino said. Naruto watched the burned hole that had been his apartment that morning. What's going to happen to me? Don't worry, Naruto, you can stay at my home until another apartment is found. Kurenai said. She knew it would be hard for Naruto to locate a new apartment. For fear a repeat of this attack. Thank you, Kurenai-sensei. Naruto said. None of them missed the hollow ring in his voice. Hinata, Naruto. Both of you rest. Kib, Ashino and I will salvage what we can from the building. Kurenai said. Naruto and Hinata sat on the curb, watching people make sure the building was secure and wasn't about to collapse. Hinata also watched Naruto. He had a vacant look on his face that tore at her heart. It'll be alright. Kurenai-sensei will make sure you find another apartment, and until then you can stay with her. In Trut, she was a little jealous of her sensei. If only her family was kinder, she could have offered for Naruto to stay with her. She blushed at the possibilities. My stuff has been destroyed before, I'm used to that. But if I had cleaned my apartment this morning, my clone would have let you come up and you would be dead right now. Naruto said. It's not your fault. Hinata said. If I was any other shinobi this wouldn't have happened. Naruto said. Hinata wrapped her arms around Naruto and pulled him back until he was leaning against her. She had a vague memory of her mother doing something similar for her long ago. It's not your fault, you can't control other people. We're both shinobi, we know the risks. There's a big difference between getting hurt on a mission and getting blow up in your own home. Naruto said. But no one got blow up. We're both fine. We could die 1,000 ways each day. But there's no point in worrying about each way. We do what we can and hope for the best. Hinata said. Naruto sat up and gave her a smile, a weak one, but it still made her stomach tighten and a blush creep into her cheeks. Thanks, Hinata. He took her hand and intertwined their fingers. Kurenai had been worried that they wouldn't be allowed to take anything while the explosion was investigated. However, the Anbu were already finished. The explosive tags had been arranged so that Veer opened the door and set off the tripwire would be incinerated. They said even a Jonin would have been several injured. Powerful but simple. Because the blast was focused at the door, several portions of Naruto's apartment had survived relatively undamaged. Most of his clothes were alright, they had been blown across the street, but Kurenai was sure she got them all. Kill Me Orange wasn't easy to miss. Shino judged that none of the food in what remained of Naruto's kitchen was edible. He stood on the remains of a charred floor beam while his allies searched through the wreckage. Most of the utensils were likewise useless. His allies did find a still-living houseplant that had fallen into the sink and been spared. He retrieved it. Kiba and Akamaru had trouble in their own search. The explosion had scattered most of the scents. Akamaru was sniffing in the hall when he began to bark furiously. Kiba went over, his partner was pawing at the splintered remains of Naruto's door. It was wedged into the wall. Kiba wrenched it loose. Behind it was a small frog-shaped wallet, fine except for some singed fabric along the side. Embedded in the wall was also the remains of a kunai. It was half melted and twisted beyond repair. A single large box held everything that was salvageable. Naruto went through it on the street in front of his apartment. A few clothes, his sleeping cap, the potted plant he had named Uki-chan. A few basic scrolls from the academy and his wallet, a few smaller items, and Gama-chan. He smiled as he ran his fingers over Frog affectionately. Not only did he hold all of Naruto's money, but he was the one item that had survived with Naruto for more than a few months. Naruto had figured he was lost when the clone set off the trap. Kurenai almost choked when he opened Gama-chan's mouth and pulled out a wad of Ryo to make sure it was all there. Naruto, where did you get all of that? Missions mostly. It's not easy for me to spend it. Naruto said, looking away. Kurenai almost kicked herself. Of course Naruto was forced to save his money with so few shops willing to sell to him. She made a mental note to having him set up a bank account in the next few days. If that Ryo had been destroyed with his apartment, he would be broke. In light of today's events, I am dismissing you early. The Hokage has already sent another team to finish setting up the stall. Kurenai said. Kiba and Shino bowed and left. Hinata remained. If it is alright, I'll come and help Naruto settle in. Of course, Kurenai said. Kurenai's guest bedroom was simply furnished with a dresser and bed. Naruto experimentally sat on the bed. It was more comfortable than the mattress he had bought from a local store. To his credit, he had left the amount of Ryo that they had asked from other costumers. Naruto, do you remember what we talked about before you went to the Land of Wave? Hinata said. Blushing, Naruto thought back. Nothing came to mind, then he remembered. Our date. We haven't had a chance yet. So I was wondering if you. Hinata took a breath to steady herself. Can we go to the festival together? Sure, Naruto said. Well then, I will, see you tomorrow. Hinata said, quickly leaving the room. She had the familiar light-headed feeling she got around Naruto. At least she could keep from fainting now. Shino walked home deep in thought. When he had seen the remains of Naruto's apartment, he had felt the same anger as years ago when children had broken into a nesting area and destroyed a new colony simply for the amusement. Or at Hat Academy when several of his allies had been killed for being insects. He had taken this attack as a personal insult by people lacking reason. And as anyone in the village knew, you did not insult an Aburame. Shino's mother, Hino, was in the kitchen when he entered his home. Despite not being from the clan, she had adopted their traditional clan clothing, her straight brown hair hanging loose down her back. She turned when she heard Shino enter the kitchen. You were upset. Shino had never been able to deduce how she was able to read not only his emotions but those of every member of the clan. It has been a troubling day. She rested a hand on his shoulder. Can I do anything to help? I am going to purpose an idea to father, I would like your support. Shino said. That depends, what is it? She said. It is what logic and honor dictate. Shino said. You're as impossible as your father. She said. Just as Shino thought, it wasn't long before his father came in carrying a small box with new samples for their breeding experiments. You have returned early. I have. You heard the explosion. Shino said. I did, however I did not hear any secondary alarms and concluded it was an isolated incident. Shibi said. It was. However, it was centered at the apartment of Naruto Uzumaki. If you remember him from my report on our mission to the Land of Waves. Shino said. I do. I am sorry to hear of his death. Shibi said. Shino's early return made sense now. Naruto had been joining his son's team for training and mission for the past few weeks. Even a Jonin would have at least been inured by a blast as large as the one he had heard. A genin would have stood no chance. It was understandable the Kurenai would have given the rest of her team time off to come to terms with these events. To lose a comrade so early was uncommon and tragic. Shino's mother rested a supportive hand on his shoulder. Naruto is unharmed. The trap was triggered by one of his clones and there appear to be no fatalities. Shino said. That is good to hear. Shibi said. He was however confused. He had taught Shino reason and his son was clearly leading up to something. Several possibilities came to mind. But he had already been wrong once in so many minutes, so he did not voice them. It is. However, Naruto's apartment was completely destroyed. The building should have been condemned long ago. The condition it was in before the blast was derelict. I believe that the clan owns several nearby apartment buildings. Shino said. Shibi nodded. He had not considered this turn of events. He would have to handle it carefully. We do. And as I believe you also know, there are many empty apartments. However, there are circumstances which would make it difficult on us to allow him to take up residency in one of them. If the circumstances you are referring to involve the Kyuubi, then I do not believe they are a factor in this matter. Shino said, almost smiling when his father's eyebrows showed above his dark glasses. That was a rare reaction. His mother tried to cover her surprise with a cough. How do you know? Shibi said. His mind was swarming. This entire conversation could be treasonous. I observed abnormalities in the Land of Wave and Naruto confirmed my suspicions. You do not have to worry about the Hokage's law regarding this secret. All members of my team are aware of Naruto's position. Shino said. You have known since the Land of Wave. Shibi said. I have. And I have made Narosi's observations. I do not feel his treatment by the village is justified. His treatment is an exaggerated version of our own. Shino said. And because of this you feel a kinship with him. Shibi said. I do. Those who have attacked him today did so with a complete lack of reason. Shino said. Fear is a strong reason. Shibi said. Fear is no reason at all. Shino said. You do know to allow him to take up residence in one of the clan's buildings would mean convincing the elders. Shibi said. I understand and I am prepared to speak with them at the earliest opportunity. Shino said. Shibi studied his son. It could take a good deal of time. I know, however I believe there is little else to be done. Most people will turn him away now fearing a similar attack. Shino said. Your concern for a friend is admirable, Hino said. There may be a way to bypass the clan's council entirely. They Avenue no say how we use our personal property. That is true. Shibi said. I take it you own a suitable location. Shino said. Yes. I acquired it several years before you were born. At present most of the units are empty. The elders have no say in how I manage it. I will allow him to live there. Shibi said. He knew he was taking a large risk. However, he had never known his son to act hastily or without considering the facts. He had faith in Shino's abilities to reason and understand situations. Naruto woke at his usual time and got ready for his training with Guy and Lee as quietly as he could. Kiba had gone back to the stall yesterday and retrieved his weights for him. He didn't want to wake Kurenai. Still, she was in the kitchen when he came downstairs. Sitting at the table sipping a cup of coffee. She gave him a mumbled good morning. He was glad to see someone else despised being awake at such an early hour. It is good to see you. There are many unyouthful rumors about you. Lee said. Did they involve my apartment exploding? Naruto said. You have heard them then. Lee said. No, but my apartment was blown up yesterday. Naruto said. Guy insisted on a full explanation. When Naruto finished, Guy had a deep frown. I have never heard of such unyouthful actions. Well, at least no one was hurt. Naruto said. He had never seen Guy truly angry before and he didn't want to that morning. It is admirable that you are still willing to train after such an unyouthful incident. Guy said. Well, I figured hitting something would help. Naruto said. Then we shall forego your normal training in favor of sparring with Lee. Remember, no chakra or clones. Guy said. An hour later, Naruto and Lee were both on the ground panting. Lee had dominated the early matches, but with each one he had become slower with fatigue. Naruto's unnatural stamina had kept him going and allowed him to recover quickly. Still, after 12 matches he had only managed to fight Lee to a stalemate. Figured I would find you here. Tenten said, entering the training ground. Are you alright? Yeah, fine, just sparring with Lee. Naruto said, climbing to his feet and trying to brush off some of the grass that clung to him. Do not worry, I did not go full out on him. Lee said. You held back. Naruto said. I meant because of your apartment. Tenten said, trying to head off the argument. I'm okay, it was a clone that set it off. Naruto said. I'm sorry I didn't come check on you sooner, but after me and Dad got the records for the Anbu, there was an emergency meeting of the Weaponsmiths Guild. Mumik. Ansu tried to get them to revoke our permit. Tenten said. That's bullshit. It's not your dad's fault, someone tried to blow me up. Naruto said. The guild agreed, but it was a close thing. By the way, I'm supposed to deliver this to you. Tenten said, handing over a wrapped bundle. Naruto opened it. Inside were 2 full basic kunai sets along with an envelope filled with ryo. He could still smell the oil used on the weapons. What's this? Your share of the sales from your explosive tags. My day was going to pay you it at the end of the month, but he figured you could use it now. We also figured you'd lost some weapons. Tenten said. I can't accept all of this. Naruto said, trying to give it back. Sorry, no returns, besides my dad feels bad that he sold the tags that destroyed your apartment. He also said he would understand if you didn't want to make them for the shop anymore. Tenten said. I don't blame your dad. Naruto said. I figured, but he was pretty upset. Mumikansu wasn't helping either. He kept demanding to know where we were getting the tags from. Luckily the Hokage stepped in and said the source was secure. I think Mumikansu just wanted to try and get the tags for himself. Tenten said. Fat chance of that. Naruto said. So you'll keep making the tags? Tenten said. Yes, I could use the extra money. Naruto said. Good, cause we're still getting a ton of orders. Tenten said. After training, Naruto went for his normal breakfast. Tsuki and Ayame had heard the same rumors that Lee had and were relieved to see he was alive. Ayame set a plate in front of Naruto. No charge today. I can pay. Naruto said. It didn't feel right taking a free meal while he had all the money from the explosive tags in his pocket. Of course you can, but you won't, so don't even try. Ayame said. Hey, now if he wants to pay he can. Said Tsuki. Ayame's look silenced him. Naruto set some ryo on the counter when he was done. Ayame glared at him. I said it was on the house. I know, but that's the tip. Naruto said, jumping back when Ayame swung her ladle at him. As Naruto walked to meet with Team 8, his mind wandered to where he could find an apartment. Kurenai sends. A had said he could stay with her until he found somewhere else, but he didn't want to take advantage of her. He also didn't have much hope of finding a new place. Watch it, Sakura said. Naruto had been so lost in thought he had walked right into her. Sorry. Naruto said. What has you looking so bummed? Did those freaks in Team 8 finally realize how useless you were and kick you out? Well, don't try coming back to us. Sasuke and I are doing great without you always trying to show him up. Sakura said, leaning against a wooden pole, smirking. My apartment was destroyed yesterday, so shut up. Naruto said. Right, like anyone would waste the effort on a loser like you have to be the most pathetic shinobi in the village. Sakura said. Naruto had had enough. He threw a Umi strike at Sakura. For the first time putting chakra into the strike. His fist slammed into the wood. He had thrown it just to the right of her head to avoid hurting her, the last bit of self-control he possessed. The effect was impressive. His fist sunk into the wood, splinting it. When he pulled his hand back, there was a foot-wide crater in the wood with an imprint of his knuckles in the center. The chakra had protected his hand from the splintered wood. He felt his nails growing and fought to control the Kyuubi's power. The most useless shinobi in the village. That's you. All you do is sit around daydreaming about Sasuke. If you cost him the Chunin exam, how do you think he'll feel about you? You're nothing but a joke right now. Naruto hurried down the street before he was tempted to attack again. Akira stood frozen, looking at the damaged pole. That could have been her head. Sasuke had been on his way to meet with Kakashi when he had seen Naruto and watched as he struck the pole. Once Naruto and Sakura were gone, he dropped to the street and examined the wood. Then struck it as hard as he could. His knuckles left an indent, but there was nowhere near as much damage as Naruto had caused. He rolled and stabbed a kunai into the wood before racing to see Kakashi. Kurenai trudged toward her team's meeting spot. While Naruto had gone to his training, she had investigated several possible apartments. Somehow the word had gotten out that the person she was looking for was Naruto, because most of the landlords told her their apartments had been filled. Directing her towards others they had heard of, often in the worst sections of the village. She was surprised when she saw Shibi crouched next to his son, rubbing Akamaru's stomach while Kiba scolded his partner. Why do you just roll over for any stranger you meet? You're supposed to be fierce. Shibi, it is good to see you again. To what do we owe the honor? Kurenai said. Shibi bowed slightly to Kurenai, the proper respect to show his son's instructor. I understand Naruto is in need of a new apartment. He is. Kurenai said. I would like offer one. I am sure it will be far more acceptable than his previous residence. Shibi said. Will your clan allow it? Kurenai said. The Aburame had never shown hostility towards Naruto that she knew of, but neither had they given support. This building is owned by myself and my wife, the clan has no say in how I use it. Shibi said. Very well, can we view it after our mission this afternoon? Kurenai said. I have already spoken with the Hokage, he has agreed to provide your team with the equivalent of AD ranked mission in helping Naruto locate a suitable apartment. Should the unit I am offering be suitable, then the mission will be to acquire our furnishings. Shibi said, handing over the paperwork for the mission. Kurenai smiled. Leave it to Aburame to have everything organized and planned out. Thank you. Shibi shook his head. This is Shino's doing. Naruto was still fuming when he reached Team 8's training ground. He perked up when he heard Shino had found him a possible apartment. Kurenai still made them go through their training, but she let them stop early. RLY, their minds weren't on their task today. While she was glad they were concerned for a friend, she was also disappointed to lose even a single day of training this close to the Chunin exam. Together, they walked towards Shibi's apartment building. It was located near the Aburame homes on a well-kept street. There was no trash along the road or graffiti on the walls. There was a small yard in front of the building with a large tree shading it. The building was 2 stories and appeared well maintained. Shibi was waiting for them. When Naruto walked into the apartment, he stopped and stared. It was a single bedroom unit on the 2nd story with a large living room, a small but well-designed kitchen, a bathroom and a bedroom. The living room and kitchen were bigger than his former apartment had been. Windows light the living room wall, letting in the afternoon light. There was a small balcony off of the bedroom. Shibi watched as Naruto walked from room to room. The apartment was fairly standard and unimpressive, however Naruto's actions suggested it was above what he was accustomed to. Only Shino noticed the almost inaudible buzz from his father's adjudicated allies. It's great, but I don't think I can afford it, Naruto said. Looking at the floor, The village had paid for his last apartment, but he knew when he became a chunin he would be expected to pay his own way. And with the fine Fr. Owned the council, he wouldn't have much money left. Most of the apartments in this building are currently empty. If you agree to use your clones to clean the vacant units once every 2 weeks, I am prepared to accept it as your rent. Shibi said. Really? Naruto said. Only the fact that it was Shino's father kept him from being suspicious. Yes, Shibi said. Naruto bowed deeply. Thank you. Kurenai surveyed Naruto's new apartment. It was decent, and because it was owned by Shibi there was a measure of safety to it. While he hadn't officially declared the Aburame supported Naruto, most people would think twice about attacking him here for fear of offending them. Well, now that that is settled, we have a mission. To locate the proper furniture. Kurenai said. Guess it's good I got this. Naruto said, pulling out the envelope Tenten had given him. He had tried to fit all of the money into Gama-chan, but the poor creature was stuffed to bursting with a sizable amount left over. Kurenai looked at the wad of Ryo. Naruto. Where did you get that? Tenten's father. I make explosive tags for his shop. Naruto said. You're the one making those new explosive tags. Kurenai said. She had heard another Jonin bragging about them. Yes. Naruto said. Impressive. Kurenai said. Thank you, Naruto said. Don't worry about paying for the furniture. The village pays for personal items lost in the line of duty within the village. The law was passed to deal with losses due to invasion, but the Hokage feels this falls under it as well. Kurenai said. Shibi suggested a large furniture store nearby and accompanied them. The store owner frowned when he saw Naruto. I am sorry you must go, we are closed for the rest of the day. That is unfortunate, Shibi said, walking in behind them. Of course we are always open for a member of the illustrious Aburame clan. The store owner added quickly. Naruto is a new tenant and needs to furnish his home. Shibi said. Well, as I said, we are closed to normal customers. If I may suggest another store not far away. The store owner said. That is unacceptable. Shibi said. Do I need to remind you of the terms of the lease you have signed with my clan? I hardly think I can be faulted in this case. The store owner said. Shibi took the man into the back of the store. Even Kiba couldn't hear what was said, but he could smell the fear on the man as he and Shibi returned. Please allow me to show you the beds first. Shibi nodded, then turned to Kurenai. He should be cooperative now. If he is not, please inform me. Of course, Kurenai said. Naruto, who had never been welcomed in any furniture store before, had very simple tastes. And on several occasions Kurenai had to encourage him into a piece of furniture that was slightly more elaborate. Such as a bed frame with storage underneath it to save on room. Hinata helped Naruto in choosing furniture that would match and flow with the apartment. Kiba was able to offer suggestions on furniture durability, and when the store owner began to become uncooperative, a small noise from Shino was all it took to have him bobbing his head in agreement again. Once Kurenai was stratified that they everything Naruto needed, she handed over the voucher from the Hokage and made arrangements to have the furniture delivered to Naruto's apartment. Teammates spent the rest of the day helping Naruto settle in, assembling furniture and arranging it to Hinata's satisfaction. Naruto was happy to let her have her way as to where things went. When they finished and Kiba, Shino and Hinata had left, Naruto fell back onto his new bed. He would have been content to fall asleep right then. But Kurenai had other ideas. Up Naruto, you're not finished. Naruto moaned, forced to give up his comfortable bed. What else do I have to do? Well, you still have things at my place to get, and you need to open a bank account. Kurenai said. Why? Naruto said. Because it's not smart or safe to carry so much money with you or to leave it at home. What would you have done if all your money had been destroyed or stolen? Kurenai said. And a bank would stop that. Naruto said. Yes, a bank will guard your money for you. For a small fee they protect it, but it's still your money and you can take out however much you want to whenever you want. Kurenai said. Naruto followed her towards the Hokage Tower and down a wide side street. The bank was large with guards stationed outside the door. The building was illuminated by several spotlights. Most shinobi use this bank because it remains open from 6 to n. In and it is located close to the Hokage Tower. Naruto hesitated as they approached and the guards glared at him, but they didn't move to stop him. They had beaten the evening rush of merchants and Kurenai directed Naruto towards an open window. The woman behind it wore such a fake smile Kurenai thought she would be sick. Hello, sir, how can I help you? I would like to open an account. Naruto said, repeating what Kurenai had told him to say. I am sorry but I am unable to do that, you need to speak with one of the men over there. She said pointing across the bank lobby where several desks were arranged in rows. As they walked towards them the tellers who weren't busy disappeared through a door, those who remained quickly finished their transactions and followed them. After several minutes of waiting Kurenai walked back to the windows and spoke with someone then waved Naruto to follow her. They were led to a small office. A thin-haired blonde man with a nervous look smiled when they entered. Hello Miss Yuhi. How can I help you today? You can help me by assisting Naruto with opening an account. Kurenai said. Well that's not really my department, I'm sure one of the tellers out front can assist you. He said. They seem to have all taken their breaks at the same time. The customer service is slipping. Kurenai said. Well if you return to the front I am sure I can find someone to come help you soon. He said. I think, since we are here now and you do not appear to be busy that you can assist us. Kurenai said. Well as I said it's not really my department, I mean I haven't done that in ages. I'm not even sure I remember how. He said. You remember just fine. Kurenai said. Ah, of course I do. I just need to see your identification sir. He said. Naruto handed him the ID card he had been given when he became a genin. The man looked it over a moment. I am sorry sir but a genin is unable to open an account without a cosigner, a parent for example. Is that a new regulation? Kurenai said. Fairly new yes, we have had several problems with genin before, they are so loose with money. He said. I will cosign for Naruto. Surely a genin is credible enough. Kurenai said. Of course. It's only that, well. He leaned over his desk and motioned for them to do the same. Okay listen there is a standing order that we're discourage him from opening an account. Do whatever we can to send him away, the regulation about genin is new, from about the time he became one. If he somehow managed to find a cosigner we were to tack on as many fees as we could and do whatever else we could to ruin the cosigner's account. You knew about this and you never told anyone. Kurenai said the venom in her voice bit into the man. This was a good job, I never thought he would ever try and open an account. He said. I could arrest you right now. Kurenai said. I know. He said. He was pale and sweating. Who gave you the order? Kurenai said. It was on a note from management. I don't know who sent it but we all got a copy and management never retracted it even when it was brought to their attention. My advice is to find somewhere else. He said. I will report this to the Hokage. Kurenai said. I figured as much. He said. Where would you suggest we go? Kurenai said. The venom gone, replaced by a kind tone. There is a bank down the street. It's owned by a man from the land of tea. He deals mostly with foreign merchants. I've heard rumors that he disagrees with several of the other banks in the money lending guild on many things. That's your best bet. He said. Thank you. Kurenai said. They walked out of the office and towards the front. One of the tellers stopped them in the hall, another fake smile on her face. I trust you have completed your business. Unfortunately not, I was unaware he would need a cosigner. Kurenai said. I am sorry I did not realize he was a genin or I would have mentioned it earlier. The teller said. It's fine. Kurenai said. Once they were away from the teller Naruto said. You lied to protect him right? I did. Kurenai said. Naruto clenched and unclenched his fist, he was angry that the ban K had orders to keep him out but he also understood that man had risked his job to warn them. A merchant in bright pink robes bumped into Naruto and mumbled an apology. Naruto grabbed the merchant's hand as he tried to slip Gama-chan into his own pocket. Before he could do anything else the merchant began screaming. Help! This delinquent is trying to rob me. Assault robbery. Guards rushed over and seized Naruto. Kurenai wanted to help him but the merchant pickpocket was trying to sneak away with Naruto's wallet. Quickly she grabbed the man and threw him to the floor. Anbu guard appeared around them. They only intervened when shinobi were involved. The regular guards released Naruto and backed up. What is the meaning of assaulting this man? A tiger-masked Anbu said. He has stolen from Naruto. Kurenai said. That's a lie. This is my hard-earned money, that delinquent tried to rob me. The merchant said. Do you expect us to believe that a merchant would have a frog-shaped wallet? Kurenai said. It was a gift. From my niece. The merchant said. Then why's my name in it? Check the top of its mouth. Naruto said. One of the Anbu took Gama-chan and examined it for traps, then opened its mouth and checked. The Anbu made a hand sign and checked again. He's right, sir, his name is in it. It's not a genjutsu and the wear on the thread suggests it's been there some time. The Bu with the tiger mask took Gama-chan and examined it. Then handed it to Naruto and turned towards the merchant. You will come with us. What? No, it's his fault. The merchant said as two Anbu escorted him towards a side door. The tiger-masked Anbu turned to Naruto and Kurenai. If you will also come with us we will take your statements. They followed him to a small officer where they wrote their statements and answered a few questions. When they were excused, Kurenai told Naruto to wait a minute and went to a teller window. After a short exchange she was handed several thick envelopes and signed a few documents. As they left, Naruto looked at the envelopes. What's in there? My savings. I closed my account here before they had a chance to pull anything. I will have to thank our friend for the warning. Kurenai said. The bank he had suggested was smaller, with a courtyard out front behind a high wall. A single tree provided shade. The bank was about to close but a teller ushered them in, giving them a genuine smile. What can I do for you? We would both like to open account. Kurenai said. Wonderful. He said, pulling out the paperwork and handing them each a copy. Is this your first account? He said. Yes. Naruto said. Then allow me to explain the basics. The teller said. Kurenai listened while she filled out her own forms. The teller didn't skip over any detail and answered Naruto's questions. The teller then checked their identification and smiled. All right, now how much will to each be depositing? Naruto looked at Kurenai for help. She slid her own money to the teller and told Naruto. You should keep between 5 and 10,000 ryo out, try to put the rest into your account. Naruto handed over his money and took the slip from the teller. We thank you for your business. Thank you, Kurenai said. They went back to Kurenai's home so the Naruto could retrieve the rest of the belongings. Then Kurenai went to speak with the Hokage. She was disappointed when the secretary told her the Hokage was in a meeting finalizing the Chunin exam and would not be available until the following day. Naruto carried the box of things that had been salvaged from his last apartment. The last few days were catching up to him, losing his home, getting a new apartment, thoughts of going to the festival with Hinata, the bank. Further down the street he saw Suk walking towards him with Sakura following, ever the loyal puppy. 3 men walked out of an alley. Hey cutie, want to ditch the kid and have some run? They cornered Sakura. Sasuke kept walking. Get out of my way. Wait up Sasuke. Don't be like that, come on. One of the men said. I said no. Sasuke. Sakura said. They aren't shinobi. Sasuke said. But we know how to have a good time. One said, holding up a bottle of alcohol. The bottle shattered when Naruto threw a kunai at it. She said no, so move on. Naruto said. Hey, who asked you? A man said. Naruto, I don't need your help, so leave. Sakura said. Yeah, listen to the hottie. The drunken man said. Be quiet. Sakura said to him. The drunken man grabbed her by the arm. Sakura tried to pull away but couldn't, her mind couldn't. Remember the lessons from the academy about escaping a person. Sasuke didn't move to help. Naruto moved. Even with the weights he was faster than the men on their best day and delivered a shallow strike just under the drunken man's ribs. He released Sakura and staggered away. The other men backed up. They had seen his speed and didn't like it. Sakura hit Naruto from behind. He staggered but her hit was nothing compared to Lee's. I said to butt out. The men laughed and left to find more booze. Naruto glared at Sakura. What was that for? I said leave me alone. Sasuke had everything under control. Sakura said. He wasn't going to do anything to help you. And you Sasuke, why did you just leave her there? Naruto said. They were not shinobi, she should have had no trouble dealing with them. Sasuke said. That's no excuse. How would you feel if you found out the night your brother killed your family someone could have stopped him but didn't? Naruto said. Don't talk about my family. Sasuke said. Something wrong. Don't like it when someone doesn't do what you say. Naruto said. I will not be insulted by trash. I am the strongest genin in the village. Sasuke said. No, you're not. And as long as you keep listening to the villagers who blindly praise you, you'll never become strong enough to beat your brother. Naruto said. You're just jealous of my skill. Sasuke said. Oh really? You want proof? You want to see that your skills wouldn't mean a thing if you weren't a Uchiha? Naruto said. What are you talking about? Sasuke said. Tomorrow there's a kunai tournament. Enter but tell them not to use your name. Then wear a henge of me and see how much your skills are worth. Naruto said. Naruto, that's ridiculous. Sakura said. Fine, I will prove to you that I am the best. Sasuke said. The end. Thanks for watching, also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.